Blog Talk Radio.
Correctly with the correct amount.
And now for our feature presentation.
You know, one day I'm going to get the hang of this whole intro thing, but give me a second, guys. We'll definitely be one day I'll be able to get this going. It's Thursday night, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time for the Untitled Movie Show here on blogtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Miguel Leon. Michael Burhan of the Nerd Genius is also here, but he had to go drop the kids off the pool. But we've got a special guest tonight. We've got from Sportaholics Radio on, is it Dream Elite Radio? Is it on there, or is it on Retro One?
It is still the Dream Elite Radio Network for now. We're in a transitional period, I guess you could say. But for now, we're there. We might still keep doing Dream Elite Radio for a while, but for now.
Well, if you folks didn't recognize the voice, that is my friend, Mr. Brandon Liggan of Sportaholics on temporarily Dream Elite Radio. Brandon, I appreciate you joining us on the show tonight.
Hi, everybody!
No, it's good, man. It's finally good to actually be awake for this show because I meant to do the first episode with you and Clint, and then like the last just couple Thursdays I've been passed out by this time. It's really weird. So I'm glad to be on the show, man.
Well, my whole sleep schedule's all over the place on my days off, so if it wasn't for the fact that I had to do the show, I'd probably be asleep as well.
It's that overnight lifestyle, bro. It fucking kills you.
Yeah, it's just hard to get used to. Even 3 years, even four actually. It's my fourth year in a few months. Fourth year doing this. It's just you don't get used to it.
I don't think we're made human beings to be up working at night.
No. I mean, the nighttime actually is supposed to naturally put you to sleep. That's why it's so difficult to stay awake. I mean,
all you got to do is watch an Uwe Boll movie and that'll put you to sleep.
Oh, no, we're talking about trying to stay awake. We don't want to go to sleep. We're talking about how working nights is difficult and it's hard to stay awake.
Very much so. I agree with you guys wholeheartedly.
And if you guys didn't recognize that voice, that is our master and commander, Mr. Michael Burhan of the Nerd Genius.
Yes. How you going, guys? How's everybody? I've been knocked for 6 this week, been going through some stuff, but now I'm back, full of beans, coffee in my blood, sandwich in my system, and ready to go.
Well, I've got dinner in front of me right now, so I'll probably be nibbling on that while we're doing the show. But we've got.
I did a Let's Play drinking noodles. That was awesome.
Multitasking, like a boss.
Like a boss.
Well, tonight's topic is going to be about are movies getting too expensive? Are summer blockbusters just getting too big for their britches? But before we get into that, let's go into some movie news. And there's not much. This week's actually been pretty quiet in terms of specific movie news, but there are some things that we can discuss. And let's see, one of the biggest ones that's popped up is M. Night Shyamalan has announced his next big project he's working on.
Oh, you said his retirement. That would be awesome.
No, unfortunately, he's still making movies, and it looks like his next big project is going to be a collaboration between him and one of his first big stars from the Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis.
Oh, God.
Him and Bruce Willis are supposedly going to be teaming up to adapt a screenplay of his entitled Labor of Love. Now, according to the article on IGN, this movie was originally written back in the early 90s, around 93. In fact, it was the first script he ever pitched to a major studio, in this case, Fox. Basically, from what I'm reading on the synopsis, it's about a man whose wife passes away, and he never felt like he gave her any sort of... He never felt like he properly told her how much he loved her before she died.
God damn it!
What?
Sorry, that just sounds like the premise for a movie I've been writing. Damn it!
No,
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I do, actually.
It gets better. So he says that the whole synopsis of it is that his wife once told him, if he loved her that much, would he ever walk across the earth for her? And so the premise is that Bruce Willis's character is going to walk from Philadelphia to Pacifica, California, which was their special vacation area. And I guess it's just going to be kind of the story of him literally walking across the U.S. to show how much he loves his wife, his deceased wife.
What, does he meet people on the way, or situations happen?
I'm guessing that's the case. It's kind of a man's journey. It's basically going to be a road movie.
If they don't use the Pretenders, I would walk 5,000 miles, then they have truly failed us.
I agree.
I would mark out if you know what? It sounds like an interesting indie piece. Like, it doesn't seem like the atypical Shyamalan movie. I mean, if it's played straight, because honestly, this seems like something a director like a Spike Jonze would be more adept to do than a Night Shyamalan. I mean, it's
like a Siri movie, didn't he? With her, Spike Jonze did a movie about a guy who falls in love with a woman's voice on his cell phone.
Yeah, it seems like a very abstract, more character-based story that you don't really see in Shyamalan. Like, he's obviously known, we talked about it last week with our Bad Directors episode, he's more known for, abstract sci-fi or horror movies with a twist ending.
Yeah.
Unless the twist ending is that the wife isn't actually dead and she pops up in California, which I don't know about. I don't know. No one's read this the supposed script.
You know what I believe? She's going to end up having a twin somewhere. Like, there's going to be some woman he meets in his journey who looks exactly like her.
Ew, that might actually... I could see that.
That's what's going to happen. But I'm glad this actually takes away from the premise of my movie, because my movie that I've actually been writing is about a man who loses his wife, never tells her how much he loves her, but situations happen. And I'm not going to go too much into detail, because Shyamalan, I'm watching you. Just saying.
You never know who's out there listening, bro.
You got to be careful, man. With Shia LaBeouf out there roaming the streets, you got to be careful where you throw your ideas out.
God, he can't even do mental breakdowns right. He plagiarizes those too.
Yeah. But yeah, currently they're trying to work him and the production company Oasis, which put out Mark Wahlberg's Lone Survivor. They're trying to get the rights to the script back from Fox, because I said, he sold this to them in the early 90s. Since they're not doing anything with it, and they've really never done anything with it, he doesn't think it'll be that hard to get the script back for them. And your thoughts on it? I mean, it seems like a very atypical Shyamalan movie, so I really can't say whether or not I can't say if it's bad or not. Keep in mind, the last time he did an atypical movie that I thought was going to be something better for him was Last Airbender, and we all know how that came out.
The thing that I see here, and I'm going to just point this out very lightly, Shyamalan, the problem is he makes even the most diverse actors sound dull. Quite recently, I'm not talking about before, but quite recently that's what he's been doing. With that Will Smith movie, After Earth, he made him and his son sound like dry-humping little wooden actors who have never auditioned in their lives. Mark Wahlberg, someone who's very charismatic, he made him sound dull. Freaking Mel Gibson. Want to go to Mel Gibson? He sounded the same. It's one of those things where I think Shyamalan needs to get away from that style of screenplay, or even work with the actor to get the character out a lot more, because you've got someone like Willis who's very well diversified himself, and he's looking for something more meaty now. I think he's getting sick and tired of action movies, so he wants to do something, and doing something like a Journeyman Picture could be something that redeems Willis as a character actor in a sense. But working with Shyamalan could spell the death of Bruce Willis as an actor in general, and he'll probably end up doing action movies for the rest of his life if he goes down this path. It's a crapshoot. You're kind of you're investing your time with someone that you've known hasn't really given the goods for quite some time.
You bring up a good point. It's been a while since Bruce Willis has done a character piece film. I mean, he used to be the opposite. When he first started his career before Die Hard, he did stuff like that. He did comedies.
Yeah.
I remember seeing like the old Bruce Willis comedies. The guy has a charisma to him. He's funny.
He is funny.
He's a guy that if he wasn't blowing stuff up, he could do other movies like that. I think he's kind of, and I was actually thinking about this back. He's kind of fallen into almost like a big budget version of Steven Seagal. Whereas Steven Seagal is doing low budget work, they're kind of in the same boat in that you really get the sense that they don't care anymore. That they're literally just doing this because they have to keep up their lifestyle. They need to make a paycheck, and Willis is just doing these action movies because that's just what he does.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's one of those things where, and you can tell he's been up with it. I remember that interview where he had that meltdown and nearly killed that guy for even asking him questions, even though the guy was green as hell.
He's been doing that recently a lot when it comes to interviews.
Yeah, he's been very snipey and very, sarcastic with people. And you can tell that he's fed up. And I understand it. I wholeheartedly understand the reason why Bruce Willis is like that. I wouldn't agree with the way that he's been going about it. Don't get me wrong. I think he needs to learn quite a lesson in a sense of the way he deals with these situations. But on the same sense, he's got to, pull back a little bit and say, hey, maybe I am being a douchebag. Maybe it's not, that guy's fault because I've got to promote a movie that I don't support. If you're as well off as Brucey is, you would really look at picking and choosing your roles a lot more, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that though, because he's kind of. I think it was Film Brain who pointed it out. He's in a lot more low budget movies than he should. He does a lot of the 50 Cent movies for some reason. Is he really as well off as we think? Because he's kind of giving Eric Roberts a run for his money in terms of popping up in B movies.
He was in Get Rich or Die Trying? I didn't know that.
No. 50 Cent has his own independent film studio.
Okay.
He puts out a lot of his own B-grade action movies with him as the star.
Yeah, it's cheap films with he basically makes movies with Lionsgate at the moment. They've invested something like $2 million in him, and he's just putting out straight to DVD bullshit.
Oh yeah, I think probably the coup de grace in terms of 50 Cent movies is he put out a drama where he plays a sport athlete who contracts cancer.
Yeah. And it wasn't even that great. Apparently, I went straight to DVD as well.
All of his movies are straight to DVD, but think about that. 50 Cent playing a cancer patient, and he went all out. If you look at pictures from the movie...
Oh, that's where he got all skinny?
Yeah, he got all skinny for it.
I thought that was another movie where he got all skinny for it. I didn't realize that was his own production.
I thought it was a documentary, Get Rich or Starve.
Oh, well, he looked like he was crackhead thin.
Yeah,
he was selling rock to back in Queens.
You know what? I'll give him the gravitas for it, but you have not earned playing a cancer patient. That would.
Oh, he tried, man.
He tried, but like I said, with Bruce Willis, he's been popping up so much in a lot of these low budget movies. You kind of wonder, is he really as off as good financially as he thinks he is? But like I said, this could be a great movie that, if done properly, which you got to emphasize that with Shyamalan, if done properly, could be a big hit. It could be something that kind of revitalizes Willis in terms of.
I don't think it would be a big time hit, though. I think this will be one of those independent movies that you'll love. That might be a sleeper hit. I just don't think on the scale that Shyamalan's going to do it, that it's going to work. That's the problem. You've seen loads of little sleeper movies like Little Miss Sunshine or Juno, and those ones that are not huge big budget pictures, but they're enough.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't see M. Night Shyamalan. I don't identify M. Night Shyamalan with those kind of movies.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson movies and M. Night Shyamalan films are usually two completely different beasts.
Yeah. And Wes Anderson is one of those guys that, he's earned to do those types of movies. And every time he comes back and does a film with Murray, they always do something very spectacular and very uplifting, something that's very thought-provoking. In terms of Shyamalan, that's not really what you get. It's kind of, oh, I see where the twist was. Oh, there's another twist. Fucking trees, really? And then it just goes downhill from then,
Oh, but Zooey Deschanel saved that movie for me, I guess. I don't know.
You know what? That movie's one of those party movies. I wouldn't suggest people watch it for enjoyment, but get a few friends together, get some alcohol going, and just kind of laugh at how ridiculous it is.
No, but you know what? If you want to laugh at a ridiculous movie, always go to The Room. That movie should be the one that you laugh at the most. Or that one is the kind of movies that you just feel sorry for.
Fair enough.
I have another one in that vein, and I've mentioned this several times. Miami Connection.
I've actually never heard of that movie.
Oh,
yeah,
my
no, talking
God.
about this. You were supposed to do a Geek Speak on it, wasn't you?
We tried to do a Geek Speak on it, but I mean, it really doesn't work when one person's watching the movie and the other person isn't. And they're in
Should have
two
just done a
separate.
Google Hangout and just basically just watch the movie
I
on the
mean,
Hangout.
we tried. We failed miserably. In fact, Peyton really didn't even find the movie funny. But honestly, he didn't really give it a chance. I think it's one of the funny. If had we been in the same room watching it together, we would have enjoyed it more. But again, Amy Connection, motorcycle ninjas, and a kung fu rock band or taekwondo rock band.
So there you go, Miguel. That's it. You got it here first, folks. But yeah, no, with bad movies, I'd go for those kind of things. I wouldn't really go with stuff like, for instance, a Shyamalan movie, because I think his movies are kind of one of those ones where it's so frustratingly bad that you want to punch him in the face if you ever meet him.
He's trying. You can see what he's like. He's trying to be an artistic director at times, but he falls short of his own lofty expectations.
Well,
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I will ask him, like, I'll plead with him not to do, and that's do movies and put himself in there. I know he wants an acting credit, but every time he keeps putting himself as this mystical being or this person that the main character has to talk to for no fucking reason because he's got a solution to a problem or something. That needs to stop.
He wants
Shyamalan.
He wants to be not Steven Spielberg. Stephen King is what he wants to be.
Yeah, but he's not. He's not even Steven Spielberg. I remember after that article where they said he was the next Spielberg, that kind of got to his head, and I think he's kind of gone with that whole arrogant aspect of things. And he just needs to step back. He needs to look at what he's doing and just change up a bit and say, hey, maybe this is wrong. Maybe what I've done here isn't right. Maybe I need to switch it up a little bit. And it would work. But instead, he's just like, I'll do what I like. Don't care. Just going to do this. And the worst part is studios seem to just keep bringing him back.
Yeah, I mean, he had those 3 big hits in a row with Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs. So it takes a lot for studios to basically, once you've had multiple hits, to stop giving you money. I mean, we talked about that last week with some directors, that you just wonder how these guys are able to get the budgets and the movies that they're able to do.
Well, in the terms of Uwe Boll, it's because he ends up like getting his money back from the government anyway, so he just films it in Germany.
Not anymore. I think they cut off that tax credit a while ago, which is why he hasn't really done a video game-based movie in a while. I mean, he's got Postal 2 in the works, but he's already I think he's admitted that that's going to be a gimmick movie. Like, he's basically said in interviews he's going to purposely go out of his way to make that the most offensive movie ever made.
How dare he besmirch such a lofty title like Postal?
I know. I'm not. People are giving him guff because it just feels like he's making just a trash product. But I mean, to be fair though, Postal is itself a trash game. So
It's no this job for hire, Brandon. It's no this job for hire.
It really isn't. They don't try to aspire to such lofty standards as we do.
Exactly.
It's true, man. It's true. We are true Renaissance men.
Yeah, and I think people need to start throwing money our way.
I do.
And
we get our Kickstarter up.
Yeah. Speaking of throwing stuff our way, you can throw us a call if you want to be a part of the show. The number this time is 718-664-9265. Again, 718-664-9265. The Untitled Movie Show. I have to be very careful about that because last week for the first hour, I gave people the host call-in number.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I was sitting there. It's like, hey, guys, call in. It's 213-943-3434. And then halfway through the show, I'm like, I'm stupid.
Yeah.
I deserve to get only 4 listeners last week.
I'm Miguel Leon, and I've got stupid written on my head.
Yeah, womp, womp, womp. But this time I got the right number. I just put the chat up, so if you guys are out there on the Blog Talk Radio Sphere, just you can hop into our Retro Unlimited Network chat. We've got that up and running. I'm throwing the link out for the show to some other places on Facebook to try to get more people to call in. Tonight's topic is going to be about are movies getting too expensive? But before that, we've got our movie news to talk about. Let's go into some more Batman versus Superman news.
Oh, I got something I want to talk about. Something I'm super stoked about that got announced this week.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, go ahead. Let us know.
We finally, DreamWorks has finally come to terms with a director for their Ghost in the Shell project that they've had the rights for. I mean, it's been almost 10 years where they've had this movie in pre-production. And it was kind of surprising when they went for Rupert Sanders, who is most notably known for Snow White and the Huntsman, a movie who I had been meaning to see, but I just never really sat down to watch it.
I'm the same way.
It was okay.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've got that movie on my computer right now, and I just gotta sit down and actually watch it.
You have to be like in the right mood to watch it. It is an interesting take on a classic tale with a lot of interesting visuals. It makes me think that he might lend some of that visual style to the Ghost in the Shell universe. You know, it'll be interesting how he interprets the whole being inside of the internet aspect of that, universe. So I'm no date has been released as far as release date, but we have a writer, we have a director. Let's hope this movie makes its made, because I really, 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 really want to see a live action Ghost in the Shell movie. Such great.
I love the anime.
It's always
I love the anime with this.
It's been one of my favorites always, and I've gone on record and say that if anything in pop culture has accurately predicted where our society is heading to, it's Ghost in the Shell.
I've been meaning to watch that anime. Like, that's one of those animes I feel bad that I haven't been able to watch, but I'm kind of getting back into the swing of animes. I've been getting back into finally finishing up the Cowboy Bebop movie and that series. My friends have been suggesting me stuff like Trigun and Big O. I'm slowly but surely getting myself back into the anime scene. I fell out right around the time of I was a kid, but I've been hearing rumors about the Ghost in the Shell live-action movie for a while now. It's kind of like I said, going back to the Cowboy Bebop movie. They've been trying to get that off the ground for years, and you just kind of got the sense that it was going to be one of those, those development projects that just never gets off the ground. But
it's Spielberg. From everything I've understood, it's Spielberg's one of his pet projects. He's absolutely enamored with the idea of just the universe. He loved the original movie too. So he's going to try and work his hardest to get this done. I'm sure it's probably down on the pecking order of important projects for him, but he wants to get this movie made, and I believe we'll see it made. Eventually, it's come time where he'll put all his effort into this, and we'll see it. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe another 10 years. I hope not, but I hope we see this movie.
Well, it's also based.
I just want to know. I just want to know if he's going to work on basically adapting it the way that the movie should be adapted, or if they're going to make changes to it. Because every time they try to Americanize an anime or a certain movie, it kind of ruins things.
Oh yeah, sure. You want to hear some? I remember back when they were talking about the Akira movie, when they were trying to do that, and one of the big controversies over that is they wanted to make the rival gang in that movie a multicultural gang. They wanted to have like one black guy, one white guy, one Spanish guy, one Asian guy, because they, according to the production company, they didn't want to alienate any races for advertising purposes. And I thought to myself, I've never seen Akira, but I know for a fact that the gang in there is one. You don't see multicultural gangs. You see one gang. They're usually one race, depending on what they are, and that's just how it is. And you're just doing this just to what? So you don't offend advertisers.
I'd even go so far as to say I don't really see much ethnic diversity in anime, and I think that's one of the things that you could say that makes anime so good is because everybody looks the same.
Everybody looks the same.
Race doesn't really play a factor in anime, because everybody, it's kind of just I'm probably using the wrong word for it, utilitarian almost, I guess, but it's singular, basically. It's just everybody looks the same, everybody's got the same eyes for the most part, unless the story calls for a black character or a Spanish character, which usually looks weird in anime.
You know what literally just dawned on me about when we're talking about Rupert Sanders? Rupert Sanders was the guy that Kristen Stewart cheated on Our Paths with.
Yeah.
That was the guy. Holy shit. That literally just dawned on me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing that because that caused a lot of issues after that came out. That came out right around the time the movie hit theaters, so people were wondering if it was going to affect the box office. I don't think it did. I think the movie at least broke even.
Yeah, well, I can't really complain about it because I was only really half paying attention to it. The movie did kind of lose my interest a little bit. They did, one thing I will say they made good about Snow White and the Huntsman, they made Charlize Theron look very unattractive at times. And they made that look believable that she was actually, a witch and can turn into evil things. It's a very visually stimulating movie. There's a lot of interesting visual styles and visual effects. But yeah, I'm interested. I'm stroking my beard menacingly now. Let's see what comes next from this time.
I've always thought anime adaptations were great for directors that have a very visual style. Like, honestly, this might be sacrilege, but I think a Michael Bay would be perfect to adapt an anime.
Absolutely, because he's got the fantastic imagination to do it. He would be the perfect director for a Gundam anime. I mean,
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Well,
I think if you had I think if he had a good producer there to kind of rein in on his Michael Bayisms in terms of his for some reason his lowbrow comedy that he seems to latch onto, if you could kind of keep that in check and get a good writer in there, yeah, I could definitely see that. You just got to keep a lead.
I think, in my opinion, you could work with someone like Zack Snyder would probably be good for it, or who's that one? J.J. Abrams, perfect.
Yeah, but they're both busy doing Batman vs Superman and this little film called Star Wars. You might have heard of it.
Yes, very true. But in the same vein, those are the types of directors that I would see do those kind of projects. With Snyder already adapting successful comic book franchises, with someone like Bay, look what he did to the Transformers franchise. He did not do that franchise justice. And a lot of it, you could tell, was either he was getting bored with it or he just didn't care. And in a sense, he could do, someone else could do a far better job. And as you're saying, with producers kind of pushing him to do it in the right way, I don't think anyone could tell Bay what to do. He's kind of one of those guys who can write his own check at the moment.
Yeah, he's kind of fallen into the whole James Cameron thing of he's such a bankable director that he's, like I said, he's fallen into that whole rock star director thing, and it's kind of a weird place to be because we've seen that power put in the hands of good when it comes to directors. We've also seen that power put into the hands of bad. So honestly, if we're looking for somebody to direct an anime, I'm actually starting to get into this guy's work, and his name is Joseph Kosinski. He's the guy that directed Tron Legacy and Oblivion. I think visually, I would love to see him adapt an anime.
Yeah, it's one of those things where with him, he could probably do something really impactful. And you know what? Why not? Why not focus on new hungry directors, guys that have proven that they can do something spectacular, but maybe can actually pull something like that off? I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's always great directors. I mean, every director has to start somewhere. My only problem is that with the recent track record of directors taking over remakes of movies, which I want to talk about sometime next week when the RoboCop movie comes out. With remakes, I haven't seen the new crop of directors handle those very well. So we'll get into that and my opinions on that when we get to it. But yeah, in terms of Ghost in the Shell, I'm excited for it. I think that Rupert Sanders has proven himself to be a very good visual director, at least from what I've seen. You got Spielberg behind it. You've got the Arid brothers, Avi and Ari Arid, who produced the Marvel movies. So we'll wait and see, guys. This is good. I hope this thing pulls off. We need more anime-based adaptations. Broaden the fan base.
I agree.
And speaking of adaptations and things like that...
All the people involved in this movie...
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You had a thought?
No, the people involved in this movie don't fuck around. Yeah, I said all the people involved in this movie don't fuck around. So this movie, I think, will eventually get made. It's just a question of when.
Agreed.
So that's it. That's my point.
Well, speaking of adaptations and directors and things like that, it seems as though we've got a director rumored for Steven Spielberg's Halo series for the pilot, and it's none other than Elysium and District 9 director Neil Blomkamp.
A.K.A. the man who should have directed the goddamn Halo movie.
Yeah. For those of you who don't remember, when Halo 3 came out, they had this series of live-action vignettes that they did, that they promoted. I believe they even turned it into a mini-series overseas or something like that. And they had Neil Blomkamp directing it, and they were really good. And a lot of people at the time when Spielberg was tied to producing the Halo movie, a lot of people thought he was going to be the one taking over, and for whatever reason, the project kind of fell through.
Peter Jackson, that's who it was.
Was it? I remember at one point after Jackson dropped out that Spielberg was said to have ties with it.
It was Peter Jackson who was the one who favored Neil Blomkamp, but I think it was Warner Brothers who ultimately owns the rights to the Halo movie. Was not sure on whether or not Blomkamp was an established enough director to work on such a franchise, such a lofty franchise, a franchise with such high expectations as Halo. They weren't willing to commit such a project to a director with little credentials outside of New Zealand. So that got Peter Jackson pissed off. Peter Jackson lost his interest. Neil Blomkamp went on to direct District 9, which ended up being a big hit for him. I got an Academy Award nominations. I don't think he got any, but...
I haven't seen District 9 fully yet, but from the parts I have seen, I almost get the feeling that was supposed to be the original Halo movie. I mean, you look at
the prawns.
Yeah, you look at the alien designs for the movie, and they very much scream of the Covenant, like in my eyes at least. Like you can easily fit those into the Halo universe, in my opinion.
I just had a line about the prawns, but I was.
Do you know what it is? That whole movie itself is just racism. That's how the movie actually portrays itself. It's kind of racism and kind of has that whole
racism and the Holocaust.
Yeah,
that's how you get your movie. That's how you get your movie nominated. That's how you do it.
It kind of has those. It has those indie undertones with that sort of A movie special effects. And it worked. It did work.
Yeah, because you don't recognize anybody in that movie. There was no identifiable star in that movie. And I can't even say his name. Sharto Copley became a star for that movie.
I think the only movie I've seen that he was in was probably the adaptation of the A-Team, which I love.
That's the best bad movie of that year that it came out.
That's a roller coaster ride, man. I was making the joke when I first saw it with my old man. That first scene, if you're not tired by the end of that first sequence with the helicopter, you ain't gonna make it. You have no soul at that point. That movie is a giant roller coaster ride, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't enjoy watching that movie, you're just not alive. And yeah, I trashed the shit out of the movie before I actually saw it. When I saw the trailer of Bradley Cooper firing a tank of gun while plummeting towards Earth.
That was so freaking awesome. The tank just goes boom, 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 boom.
But as a man of science, I had such a huge problem with that movie. I don't know why, but then when I saw it, I'm like, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
In the frame of the movie.
It's a tongue-in-cheek movie, and I love that movie to death. That's one of those movies that if it's on FX, because that movie seems to pop up a lot on TV, if it pops up, I'll sit down and watch it. That'll be a good 2 hours to kill.
Alpha Mike Foxtrot, motherfucker.
All right, so we got that out of the way, the Halo thing, and I'm actually excited, and this could be a big selling point for the Halo TV series on Xbox, on the Xbox One. I mean, that they're really banking on this Halo miniseries to be something big to sell the console. And with Neil Blomkamp directing the first episode, that could be what spearheads it. You know,
They're investing a lot of money, so they, you know, it's one of those things where you know it's going to be something special, but in the same way, this could all go to shit very quickly.
Enormous bucket of win, I think, having Blomkamp directed, because again, he should have been directed the Halo movie. I mean, come on, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bullshit.
I think I've got like one or two more bits, and then we'll go into our main topic. But I just figured I'd announce this just because it's Kevin Smith, and I'm a big fan of his. But apparently he's working on a Christmas-themed horror anthology movie.
Tusk. Is this Tusk that you're talking about?
No. This is something else. He hasn't really announced the title for it, but basically it's going to be a series of mini movies, like mini anthology things, based around the premise of an evil version of Santa Claus.
Has that been done already?
There's Santa's Sleigh with Bill Goldberg, which is an awesome bad movie.
You just said the magic word to get me to get interested in this movie, and that's Bill Goldberg.
I love Santa's Sleigh. That pops up on Spike like around Christmas, and I love watching that movie. That movie's so dumb.
Speaking of dumb movies, I was flipping through Showtime in the middle of the day, and this is, it falls in the categories of dumb family movies. Vampire Dog. Like, somebody literally took the concept behind the Air Bud movies, talking dog, gets into hijinks, and vampires.
I think the craziest one was Obscurus Lupin. That guy did a review of a movie called Karate Dog.
It's just, I mean, I had to watch it. It was such an intriguing title. I had to watch it, and I can only watch it for 5 minutes because the dog does not drink the blood of people. He doesn't like blood.
Boo.
Yeah. Boo, Norm Macdonald, who is the voice of Vampire Dog, who clearly did this movie to pay off one of his bookies.
Yeah, I think you just lost me, actually, with that, because I'm not the biggest Norm Macdonald fan.
Norm Macdonald had a farm.
But yeah, I just figured I'd bring that up. It's a weird enough concept. There's not much news about it. He talked about it on one of his podcasts. He gave a little bit of info, but stop.
I love the fact that this guy, a couple of years ago said he was done directing movies. Okay, then he says I'm going to direct one more movie that turned out to be Tusk, or one more movie that turned out to be Clerks 3. Okay, I'm going to direct one more movie. It's going to be Tusk. Okay, wait, I still want to do this hockey thing too. I mean, I love Kevin Smith, and I want him to keep making movies, but he's
kind of a hypocrite.
It is. It's getting kind of hypocritical at this point. He said he was going to make Clerks 3, and then that was it. Okay, now he's going to make this thing, and then make Clerks 3, and then that's it. I mean, how long? Is this just going to inevitably delay Clerks 3, though?
He's even got a new movie coming out soon that he just announced, and he's only announced the title of it, and it's called Christzilla.
It's awesome!
I'm willing to bet it's a monster movie with Jesus Christ mixed into it. So.
Oh my God! I hope it's a giant Jesus destroying towns or something like that. That'd be
Look, I like Kevin Smith. I love listening to his Fat Man on Batman podcast that he has on YouTube. I love listening to that. I adore the Clerks movies. Honestly, I think Clerks 2 should be it. I think the way it ended, I really hate the fact that he's making a third movie. I think he should have just ended it at 2, in all honesty.
I think it's kind of to give him that attention again.
That's what it sounds like. It's almost like in the same vein of Scream 4 or Men in Black 3. It's like there's no reason why this movie needs to exist other than it's got a name on it.
Well, yeah. The reason why he said he wants to do it is he wants to begin and end his directorial career on the same movie. And it was supposed to be he was going to have Clerks out or Clerks 3 finished by Sundance this year. So it would have been the 20th anniversary of the first Clerks movie debuting at Sundance. Sundance was just last week. He did not. So, Yeah, I want to see a Clerks 3 ideally because, you know, I love the movie. I think I'm probably the only person who saw Clerks 2 twice in one weekend.
I love Clerks 2. I have it on DVD. I really do like it. I mean, it's fun. I have such a crush on Rosario Dawson because of that movie.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, how could you not have a crush on that woman, on that character? I mean, I'd love every man that watches that movie would love to have a girl like her as a friend, even just as a friend. I mean, she just seems such a cool guy, woman.
Friend. Dude, I'd ruin her. I'm friends. Bullshit.
Couldn't happen. Couldn't happen.
That girl would be like the mother of my 20,000 children. Fair enough.
But like I said, I thought the way that Clerks 2 ended, especially with the whole going back to black and white thing, you guys have seen the end of that, where they reopen the new shop and they're both standing into it, and all of a sudden it goes back to black and white, and you see a shot of that one person digging through the milk, which is the callback to the first movie, and I'm like, that's a really poignant way to end the series. And to shoehorn in this third movie, I don't think you could live up to the ending of that movie. I thought the ending of that was just so well done.
Fair enough. I mean, we'll see if it actually gets made. Who knows? I mean, the way he's been saying things, he might find something new to do. And, you know, Clerks 3 might get even further shelved.
Well, I thought that he should have ended with Red State. I thought Red State was such a great, atypical Kevin Smith movie that he should have been like, you know what, I'm done. This is going to be what I'm ending on. Because Red State I heard was really good. And
it does, but he also kind of rubbed people the wrong way with it. Like the guys, like the movie studios, when they were originally doing the bid for it, he kind of went, yeah, this is the bid, closed the bid off, and then talked shit about movie studios. And they're still throwing their money at him, so he must be doing something right.
He's still a bankable director. I mean, you know, he's one of those guys that I think people give too much flack for stepping out of the box. You know, I haven't seen Jersey Girl, but I'm going to probably just go on a limb and say it probably doesn't deserve all the hate that it gets.
Yeah. You know, I think it gets a lot of the hate it does because it was the height of the Ben Affleck Jennifer Lopez relationship, which
it's a Lopez movie. That's what it was. That's what the problem was.
And she doesn't even play a main character. Well, she plays a character in it, but only within the first 10 minutes of the movie. She's not in the rest of the movie. People don't understand that.
Yeah, I think people compare it to Jiggly. That's the problem. And when they compare it to Jiggly, when they see Lopez at the beginning of the movie and she dies and stuff, it was kind of one of those things where I think with him it was like, I'll do the movie, but I need my girlfriend in it.
Yeah. It's like, but I don't want to put Jennifer Lopez in this movie, Ben.
Okay,
Come on, Kevin, listen, you owe me, all right?
Yeah, it's like, okay, we'll just kill her off at the beginning, okay?
Yeah, come on, man, you owe me a solace, all right? I appeared in Mallrats, you owe me a favor. All right. Or was it? Yeah, it was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back he appeared in.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where I think they were such good friends. Kevin did it. It was a good movie. I like Jersey Girl. I have a copy of it on Blu-ray and DVD, believe it or not. It's actually one of my favorite Kevin Smith movies to watch that doesn't have tits, ass, and shit jokes and stuff. And it's a great movie. You can understand his quarrels. The characters are very well written. Story's really good as well, and it has a nice little cameo from Will Smith. I don't see a problem with it. And being a father that raises his children, when I have them, I raise my children on my own. In a sense, I'm one half of a single parent unit. I understand exactly how Ben Affleck's character feels and what he's going through. Because you have that whole thing where you feel like your child's taken over your relationships. You have no life and stuff. I was there at one point, so I totally understand it. It's a very real film, and it's a very parental kind of movie, and it still holds that Kevin Smith charm. But I think from the first 5 minutes, when people see J-Lo, they just want to turn off.
Yeah, she's become box office poison. I mean, look what she did to Statham's movie Parker.
Yeah, anytime I see her in a movie now, I just switch away from it. If I see her in a poster, I'll walk away. If I see her in the title of the movie, I'll switch it off. And it's nothing to do with her. She's just not that great of an actress, and she knows it. She just looks for as much money as she can get out of it, just so that she can do it. Movies was always a side thing for her. You know, she's a singer.
Actually, it's the opposite. She started in movies first, and then got into singing, because her first movie she did was the Selena biopic, and then after that she put out her first album, and people were thinking, oh, it's an actress going into music, this is going to suck, and it turned out to be better for her. And I think that's honestly what kept her starlight going, was the fact that she became a big movie star music star after the fact, and it kind of helped boost her status as in movies.
Yeah, because that's what made her a bankable star, not at all her enormous gluteus.
Oh,
Yeah,
that didn't hurt though.
No, that kind of was the thing that got her there. The thing is, I don't really want to say that she's a bad actress. She's just not that good. That's it. You know,
yeah, for me, it's like it's the Channing Tatum effect. Like,
she's
I don't
not a lead actress. She's not a lead. She can't carry a film.
She's kind of like the best friend. She's the love interest, but that's it.
Bit parts, man. That's all. Bit parts.
Yeah, totally. And it's one of those things where it kind of kills. She's one of those. She can really kill the box office, like, earnings of a movie. And again, like, let's just talk about someone who's. I'm an actor for a cup of coffee. I haven't done. I'm not at the level of her or any of the other guys who are making tremendous amounts of money. But I do know what a good actor is. You know, I've directed people. I've trained in it. I've written roles for certain people, and I believe anyone can be a good actor as long as they can actually carry themselves well and portray their characters appropriately. And J-Lo just has two switches. One is I'm sort of like the best friend, and the other one is spunky Latina woman. Goes, why are you acting stupid? And that's...
Why'd you turn her into Rosie Perez? She speaks perfect English.
that's
Don't be stupid. She speaks English good.
But you know, she has that whole sort of like Latina fire thing going on.
I get it. Yeah, she gets ghetto. She goes ghetto. Every ethnic actress has that moment.
But she does it a lot. That's kind of embedded in her character now. That's
look. Okay, Burhan, don't hate her because she's still Jenny from the block. Okay.
Yeah.
She's gone past being Jenny from the block.
I was waiting to drop that one in.
Oh, that's beautiful.
The thing is, as well, though, she's actually at a point she nearly brought Ben Affleck down with her. You know, so that's all I'm saying.
That ass brought Ben Affleck down. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well,
I do not blame that for that.
Speaking about Ben Affleck, we've got one more bit of news, and it's the news that Batman and Superman may not be delayed as people assumed it would be. A couple weeks back, we talked about how the release date for Batman vs. Superman was going to be delayed a full year into 2016, I believe, and people assumed that's because they were delaying production. Well, from rumors coming out through Deadline, it seems that that's not going to be the case, and that production is still going on as planned, but that Ben Affleck, because of that, has had to drop out of directing the Fox series pilot, The Middleman, which is a show he is executive producing. He was going to direct the first episode, and he's had to drop out because of the production on Batman vs. Superman. But it looks like the production is still going on. It's going to be coming out at its new release date. They just wanted to give the movie more time, I'm assuming, for special effects and whatnot. And I think people were also confused because Miss Gal Gadot, the new Wonder Woman, better or worse, said that her parts wouldn't be shooting until later this year. Her parts are going to be shot later this year, but that has nothing to do with Cavill or Affleck's parts. Those are good. Those are still being done.
I really hope they just leave her to the end, like introduce her at the end, like as some sort of cameo, and not have her shot in the movie. I think we need to focus on Batman and Superman. Someone, I'm going to actually give you guys a link to this trailer because I took a look at it. It was Samuel Andrew, part of Fanboys Anonymous, who linked me to this trailer. I
just love that, like, every week now there's a new Batman versus Superman rumor. I mean, it's been literally like this almost since they announced that they were doing Batman versus Superman as the Superman sequel. I'm actually in favor of them pushing this back, because if you look at the release schedule for 2015, summer's already pretty crowded with, that's when we're going to get Avengers 2 and quote-unquote Untitled, or no, sorry, that's not yet. We're going to get Avengers 2, Marvel Phase 3 is going to kick off.
Star Wars in the fall. So 2014 is pretty much locked up as far as,
Did you just go Star Wars?
I was chewing at the time, and I'm like, I got to get this answer out. Star Wars.
I was trying to figure out. I knew if there was something else in 2015 that was coming up that could, take away from this. But Star Wars in the fall, absolutely, that's got that locked up. No other movie is going to come close to that. So 2016 makes sense.
Take a look at this YouTube channel, guys. It's Zelenx. The guy's name is Zelenx, and he did a very nice little mashup between Runner, and Man of Steel, and The Dark Knight. So take a look at those. It looks really like on par with those awesome trailers that we usually see, and it's great, and it shows you. It makes me excited for the movie. I just hope they don't ruin it with all these freaking characters. I think sometimes it's better just to tell Batman and Superman story instead of just telling the story of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Flash, and all that crap.
No, I mean, Warner Brothers needs to compete with now Disney since that they own the Marvel films and are they going to be putting out Avengers 2. They need that big franchise to compete, and they have the DC license, and they have all these characters, access to these characters, so absolutely they're going to try and shoehorn every single DC character they can to kind of set up this DC cinematic universe, because Marvel's kicking their ass in that regard. They already have a cinematic universe, comic book universe established with multiple characters, multiple franchises, films.
Yeah, don't rush things like that. If you're going to tell the individual stories, tell the individual stories and then bring them together for a big movie. Don't overshadow it, because if they're going to have all these characters in one movie, they're going to overshadow and they're going to overreach, and it's going to fuck things up.
You can't do a movie with that many characters in a short amount of time, because you lose the character development. That's why Disney and Marvel did the Phase 1 universe. They were like, we need to establish all these characters for fans, but we don't want to overshadow them by throwing them into one movie. Warner Brothers seemingly just wants to cut out the middleman and be like, let's just get these on the screen so we can sell the toys and make the money. That's always seemingly been their MO when it comes to the DC universe. And it's unfortunate, because I love the DC universe. I think there's a lot of potential. There's some great stories, but unless Warner Brothers really takes a step back and lets the creative minds really get at it like Marvel has, it's going to end up being a train wreck. And I really hate to see that, because, like I said, I have a lot of love for DC. I really do want to see the Justice League movie, but if it's going to come out as bad as we think it's going to come out, and we spent the whole 2 hours talking about the Justice League movie, so if you guys are out there, if you guys are listening, just check out our Man of Steel episode. We went in depth about that ad nauseum. By the way,
I think they have the right people in charge. I think they have the right people in charge of their DC cinematic universe. I mean, clearly Goyer and Nolan are going to be writing the stories, and they have a director in Zack Snyder that's going to be the guy who's going to get to play in the sandbox. So,
well, wasn't there a rumor going around that Ben Affleck and Goyer weren't getting along?
That was one of the last week's rumors we talked about, is that there was some heat between Ben Affleck and David Goyer, that Affleck was having trouble, was not agreeing with Goyer's direction that he was taking the movie in with his writing and whatnot. There was also some stuff that he was mad at the fact that production supposedly was going to be delayed and was going to interfere with one of his movies that he was going to have to start filming in the fall, which we haven't heard much from that. I don't know if that rumor's even got water, considering we haven't heard much fallout from it. But
I'm still with Goyer taking my Green Lantern. That's just doesn't happen, Goyer.
Well,
wrong man.
In terms of what we think about Goyer and Zack Snyder and Chris Nolan, I really do throw it out there to you folks. Check out our episode 2 on Man of Steel. Like I said, we spent the whole 2 hours just roasting that movie. So we won't go into that much. And speaking of
the best Dragon Ball Z movie ever. Did you hear me? Man of Steel is the best Dragon Ball Z movie ever.
Yeah, damn straight.
Better than Evolution. I'll give it credit, but
Well, that's anything's better than Evolution.
Yeah, Evolution, I don't know what the hell they were doing with that. That was just like, Goku, we were friends. You are the ape. And this movie was done badly.
Oh, my God.
well, folks,
I literally think the people that wrote that adaptation had never watched an episode of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, or anything.
Oh, sure.
I've heard that they adapted it more based on the old manga, but I'm calling BS on that as well.
I don't even think they read that.
They've already looked at the page and went, right, these are the characters that we've got to put in from the synopsis here. We'll just read the sleeve. Piccolo, Goku, Yamcha, and is it me or was Bulma's like boobs just sticking out of her jacket?
If that were the case, I probably would remember, but I don't.
I don't remember. Yeah, Jamie Chun or something like that was Bulma in that movie, and she's not the most buxom.
They did something with her jacket where they just like had her boobs like protruding out of it.
I don't even remember. That movie was terrible.
Yeah,
God,
that movie lost me when they were like, we need to get an actor to play Piccolo. Let's get that bloke from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Let's make him like wasn't like Piccolo some like he wasn't green.
He was Namek. He was like kind of like snake-like in a sense.
Yeah, Jesus, it was terrible.
Yeah. Get Chico. I think it might be on your end, Brandon.
Oh, sorry. I have to mute myself.
Okay. All right. So, folks, if you want to join in on the chat and maybe talk more about Dragon Ball Z, although we're going to probably be getting into our main topic in a bit, the number is 718-664-9265. It's the Untitled Movie Show, Episode 4. Movies getting too expensive. By the way, that video that you posted, Burhan, I tossed it into the main chat. So, folks, if you're listening in and you don't want to call in and you're a part of our chat, just check the movie out there. We still don't have anybody in the chat, but you know we're holding out hope. I threw out some advertising out on one of the geek groups that I'm a part of, so hopefully people are listening in on that. Guys, if you guys have an opinion about our topic, just let us know. Once again, 718-664-9265, and we are just getting into the second hour, so I think it's best that we cut the movie news down and we talk about the big theme of tonight's episode, which is, are movies getting too expensive? And what brought this on was, our first episode was about the biggest flops of 2013 and all the really expensive movies that just didn't make its money back. And it got me thinking, this year has been, last year, 2013, I don't think I've seen this many big 9 or 10, nine-figure movies flop as hard as they did. You had so many big, expensive movies that just did not hit with fans, and it brought me back to a recent presentation that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg did at the University of Southern California, and basically I don't have their exact words. I'll have to look through the article, but basically what they were talking about is that movies are getting so expensive nowadays that it's going to get to the point where movies are not going to be able to make their money back, and you're going to see a massive implosion in the box office system. Not the whole movie system itself, but just the theater experience. That it's going to turn into a situation where studios are going to spend all their money on 1 or 2 projects, and you're going to have a theater set up like Broadway, where it's going to be 10 movies a year, 10 or 15. They're going to be in the theaters for almost year-round, and your ticket prices are going to be like $20 or $30, which, if you've gone to movies right now, it's not too far-fetched.
Yeah.
Do you guys see any water to this? Do you guys think that the movies nowadays are getting so expensive that we're going to see this massive bottleneck of product?
Yes, to a point where I agree with Spielberg's terms on this. You don't need, and I've always been a firm believer of this, you don't really need like $200 million to make a movie work. You don't need to spend 20 to 30 million to make a movie work. And a lot of companies now are going for less substance and more budget. and it's kind of killing the cinema franchise as is. And also, like, you've got stuff to take into account like piracy, and so you've got to look at as well stuff like just trying to think here.
Digital distribution.
Digital distribution.
Video on
I
demand.
agree. Video on demand, and also cable networks are taking a slice of that now as well, because they're for a special fee. You can actually watch movies that are in the cinema at home in your cable network, but you've got to pay like about 4 times the amount than you would usually pay to actually get the movie on demand afterwards.
Brandon, you got anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, you know what? I do agree that, you know, the movie system in its current form is not meant to last that. I mean, given one more devastating economic collapse, and, you know, we could see major studios really fold, or at least the bankroll for major studios change. If anybody, you know, is going to be an expert on the topic on where, you know, the movie business is going, it's certainly Spielberg and Lucas. So I would agree with that assessment that could be a realistic eventuality, but, you know, maybe it's going to be 20 or 30 years from now. Who knows? What I do say is this: it is entirely too expensive for a family of 4 to go out to the movies on a regular basis. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, a family of 4 could go out for the movies under $50. Now that's about $150.
Yeah, I took a friend of mine recently to go and see The Wolf of Wall Street, and we went together, and
Great fucking movie, by the way.
Yeah, awesome movie. I loved it because it allowed, like, DiCaprio to play him. In a sense, he had more fun with it, and you could tell he had fun with the role.
Yes.
But
oh my God.
With that,
I had fun watching him.
I did too. Watching him just act like a total freaking nutcase.
I'm in the wrong fucking business. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and in a sense, it's like with those types of movies, I paid nearly $50 and upwards, or £50. So you're looking at in American money, that would probably be about that'd be about $75 to go and watch a movie, to get a small popcorn and a drink as well at the same time.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous, and yeah, it's when you've got stuff like the IMAX experience and movies now going 3D, non-IMAX 3D, and the whole 48 frames thing, and you've got a lot of theaters now that have like interactive stuff with their movies as well. Like, they're trying to make the movie theater experience unique to kind of curb off a lot of the piracy and a lot of the people that would just rather stay home. But I don't think it's going to work. I think it's all gimmicks. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to watching movies, you got to keep it simple. It's got to be you and a screen. That's it. You know, even the 3D stuff, I think, only works in certain cases. Unless it's like a movie where the director really keeps the 3D in mind but knows how to do it right to where it's not too gimmicky. Like, take Dredd. Dredd, I think, was a perfect example of good 3D. If you've seen it in 3D.
Dredd, in a sense, I felt Dredd itself did a good job telling a story. It was very enclosed, but the 3D, they tried to use the 3D to sell the movie instead of using the story to sell the movie.
Well,
which I think is where the movie failed.
That trust me, I hate the fact that movie failed, because I think it's a great, I was going to bring that up later, that's a great example of what happens when you make a low-budget movie. Dredd looks amazing, and it was a $40 million movie, you know, and it looks like something that would be $100 million. You know, the director knew how to stretch his budget and make the most out of nothing, and the movie is better because of it. I mean, it looks better than some $100 million movies. I think that movie's a perfect example, and I think had the studios not been so poor with the advertising of it, they could have made huge bank for it. But they basically just kind of, I don't even think the movie was released. I think it escaped, you know, and it managed to make its money back on, you know, video sales, to the point to where I'm hearing rumors that the production company that has the rights to it wants to make a sequel. They want to get the movie out there and get a sequel going, and Karl Urban has basically said he's willing to come back for the role.
Yeah, well, he was the best Dredd ever. I felt he did miles better than the Stallone version. And I've talked about some movie file how I felt that the movie, in comparison, really showed Dredd's character. It's just a shame that they just went, oh, see this in 3D, because they didn't even do the movie in cinemas in 2D. There was no option. You had to see it in 3D. Do you guys know that?
I have heard about that.
That's going to hinder ticket sales as is, because not many people want to actually go and watch 3D. You know, I don't.
I'll watch it depending on if it's got to be really gimmicky. Like the first 3D movie I actually saw. Second. The first 3D movie I ever saw, unfortunately, I got dragged to, and that was Last Airbender, which was horrible 3D. But the first 3D movie that pops into my mind that I saw was Prometheus, and I thought that had really solid atmospheric 3D. But let's get back onto the main topic. You know, I was thinking back to some of the older movies of my youth, and one of my favorite sci-fi pictures is the James Cameron's Aliens. That movie for 1986 looks amazing. I mean, it's got great costume designs, the great set designs. It looks like an amazing film. $18.5 million. That's how much it cost to make in 1986. Adjusted for inflation, it's about $40 million today. Do you think it's possible for movies nowadays to be made with that low of a budget and that high of a quality? I mean, you almost expect a movie like that to be like $100 million today.
I think in terms of movies, I think people are overstretching and overthinking. They're not understanding exactly what it takes and how we can actually put together a great story. Because I'm a firm believer, as a director myself, who dabbles in film and television and who wants to be the next... I'm kind of like the next big storyteller in a sense. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to sit there and throw like millions upon millions of pounds to make a movie look polished and look amazing. What I want to do is make sure that the story tells itself. You know, that you have the characters, that you have the story, and make sure that it shines above nothing else. You can have others who sit there and use gimmicks, who want to use like certain frames and lenses and certain effects and certain 3D modeling to make a movie look a million times better. It hasn't worked. If you look at X-Men Origins Wolverine, that was terrible. You know, the story was crap. It didn't work out, and they used a huge effects budget to try and make it look better. It didn't work. You know, that didn't even like killed the character. If you look at films like Avatar, it is another big one. It made money, but it ended up with everything else being overflooded with the 3D genre, the Piranha and Piranha 3DD and all that crap. You know, these other movies are going to come in and they're going to keep working and doing them until the point where people just get sick and tired of it, and the niche is going to run out. The culture of that niche, the thing that makes it viable and makes it intriguing, is just going to die out.
Brandon, your thoughts?
I just think there needs to be better quality in movies. I mean, I think one of the reasons why movies were such a failure last year, they tried to launch a lot of new franchises, and they just didn't really pan out. I mean, I think the best new IP movie I saw last year was probably Pacific Rim.
And that even didn't make much money. We talked about that in our financial flops episode. That movie, I think, cost almost $200 million to make, and it only hit in the U.S. about $100 million. But it made $400 million overseas, so it broke even like twice over. It made back its budget and more, to the point where they've already announced Pacific Rim 2. But in America, that movie was a big flop for, I believe it was Universal that put it out.
It was Legendary Universal, I think it was.
Yeah, so that if it had done any other type of business outside of the U.S., that would have been a huge flop. And that kind of goes back to something I was talking about. I was going to mention before is you're starting to see Hollywood kind of react in a negative way with that, in that they're not putting their faith into original IPs anymore. You know, there was a period that I remember, this would have been like 2011 to 2012, where...
Yeah, I think it was like 2012, no new IPs. I think it was every major blockbuster was a sequel or a remake.
Yeah, or it was a comic book adaptation or something like that. Like, there was you started looking at it like, is Hollywood done? Are they done with original ideas? I mean, this year, yeah, we got a few original IPs like Pacific Rim, but, you know, it seems like Hollywood now is starting to react in a negative way, and the first one is you're seeing less original properties. You know, they're not going to spend a budget, big or small, on unproven property, except in certain genres, and we'll get into that later. But do you think that's kind of unfortunate that now, you know, if you're a big budget movie, you're either a comic book movie or a remake of a much successful movie that honestly doesn't pan out too well.
Or a Disney movie. You know, and that's the thing. I think Disney's gotten so big now, their marketing machine has managed to amass them like tons of money with certain movies, apart from The Lone Ranger.
Well, we talked about that. That was a vanity project that was doomed from the start.
Yeah. But in a sense, I think when looking at it, the whole studio movement's changing anyway, because what they're doing now is saying, well, if someone tries to overshell us for cash and say, oh, well, I want a lot more money to portray a character, then they'll just recast them. And I think that's what's going to happen with Robert Downey Jr. As soon as he finishes with the next 3 Avengers movies, we will see another Iron Man movie. And we'll see someone else taking up the helm. They're not really worried anymore. And I think, in a sense, I don't think Downey Jr. is going to be making any big movie projects that will make him as much money as this movie did, as the Iron Man movies and his Disney contracts.
Well, I think he's already got more money than God at this point. So
yeah, I think he's done. I think eventually, once he stopped being Iron Man, you're gonna see him in a lot of like independent films and stuff like that. You won't see him trying to do the big budget movies anymore and demand it, because his rate is going to be too high. And I think if he likes a project, he'll probably lower his rate.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Brandon, do you think that's the case? Do you think that Hollywood's starting to get too complacent, that they're relying too much on name brands, on recycling older brands, on just getting their hands and just adapting whatever's out there? Or do you think that there is a place for original ideas in the box office? Not so much direct-to-video or things like that, because there's always going to be a place for that. But do you think are we going to see major studios putting more emphasis on original properties?
I think we will see them continue to make original properties. I don't think they will release these original properties in the summer, when, you know, people put out the quote unquote big budget blockbuster movies that are going to draw in all the eyeballs. They're not going to release those movies Memorial Day weekend, when people generally go to movie theaters more often. You'll see these movies, you know, come out in January. You'll see them come out in the springtime. You'll see them come out at the end of the summer. But I think they're going to mostly the summertime will be the time where they try and, you know, fill up their bottom line and push themselves into the black.
Yeah. Because I noticed that when it comes to, like, I kind of noticed that when it comes to geek culture. Like, you see, when you ever see, like, news on, like, movies or things like that, it's usually just a set number of movies, and they're usually based on franchises. You very rarely see major news outlets, like, especially in the geek cultures, really freaking out over very few original licenses. I mean, people got insane over Pacific Rim because it's giant robots fighting, but, you know,
I think, you know what, another reason why people got insane over Pacific Rim, I think it was because Guillermo del Toro was so heavily involved in it. I think he directed it, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he directed it.
Yeah. I think it will be the director and the real creative people that are behind the new IPs that will get people interested. If he's like, oh, I'm going to go see the new Guillermo del Toro movie, or I'm going to go see Quentin Tarantino. That's the only person I think that Hollywood has enough faith in to continuously put out IPs, original IPs, and make money and give him, you know, the quote unquote summer blockbuster spot.
Well, speaking of Tarantino, you're also seeing something else with movies that I'm kind of starting to get annoyed with, and that is the death of the R-rated movie, where you're starting to see less and less of an emphasis on studios putting out movies that are rated R, at least in terms of action movies, in terms of thrillers, in terms of things like that. I mean, the only place you see R-rated movies nowadays is in the horror or comedy field. I mean, two examples I can think of are Die Hard 5 and Riddick. Now, I wasn't going to report on this last week because I could not find an article proving it as fact, but there's a lot of rumor going around about Universal being in bad blood with director David Twohy over the disappointing sales of Riddick. Now, Riddick, I believe, was a $30 million project that worldwide it grossed about $100 million. So it broke even on not only its production budget, which was even kind of some of the bill was footed by Vin Diesel and David Twohy. Universal foot the rest of it, but they broke even on their advertising and their and the production. But there's a lot of heat from Universal on David Twohy because of the R rating. That they pushed hard, Universal, to get the movie out as a PG-13. But David Twohy knew that if you did that, it would castrate the character of Riddick. It has to be an R rating. So he got his R-rated cut of the movie out to theaters, and they're mad at him to the point where they don't want to do any more work with the two, with Diesel and well, not so much Diesel because they have the Fast and the Furious, but David Twohy, because in their mind, if they'd have put this out as a PG-13, it would have made a ton of money more. Like, in their mind, the difference between an R-rated movie and a PG-13 is the difference between them making $5 million and them making $50 million. And I think that's just ridiculous.
With any other character, that would have been a true statement. But because the Riddick character is such a gritty, tough as nails kind of character, and the original Pitch Black movie was, this...
It was R-rated, the first one.
It was like, I can't really call it a horror movie, but it was, it was a pretty brutal movie. So, that would be a true statement. But, the Riddick character, that movie absolutely had to be rated R.
But do you think that's apt? Because Universal's not the only one that thinks this. We'll get into the situation with Die Hard 5, but the theory in a lot of studio minds is that you can't make money off of an R-rated movie because in their mind it cuts you off from advertising to a certain crowd. Keep in mind, look at the 80s or the 90s. People had no problem promoting an R-rated movie the same as they would a PG-13, and the R-rated movie would make just as much money. Think back to the original RoboCop. Think back to stuff like Conan the Barbarian in the 80s. Think back to, Cameron's Aliens we talked about. Those movies made huge bank, and they were just marketed. They just marketed to people. Even though, the audience that probably watched it was in their teens, it didn't stop them from marketing this movie like it was a big-budget thing. Now, it seems like the R rating is a kiss of death for movies, that the studios just won't put any money into an R-rated movie unless it's an ultra-low-budget movie, like something like, for example, Olympus Has Fallen or Dredd. And even Dredd, they didn't really promote that, and same thing with Olympus Has Fallen got promotion because it had a great cast behind it. But unless you're a low-budget film, they won't put any sort of advertising or notoriety on your film, or even give it the time of day.
Yeah, most of these studios don't. If it's a new movie, something with an original screenplay or an original idea, we'll rarely find a studio willing to back it. Most studios are now trying to open up independent units that finance indie films so they can actually put these films out. But they're never usually financed by the studios themselves.
Yeah, and going back to Die Hard 5 I talked about, one of the criticisms that people gave to that was that the movie was too short. It was edited you can tell the movie was edited down from its original state. And keep in mind, all the Die Hard movies before that were about 2.5 hours long. The new one was about 90 minutes. The director's cut that came out recently is that 2.5-hour cut. They basically took out almost an hour of footage, and the reason was because the studio, I believe it was Fox, weren't comfortable with the movie being R-rated. Keep in mind, the Live Free or Die Hard in the theaters was a PG-13, and that was a big hit. So they told John Moore, you can release your movie for an R, but we want to cut it down to 90 minutes so that we can get more movie screenings per day. They didn't feel comfortable that they could make money off of an R-rated cut unless it was short enough that they could put it in the theaters more times for people to see.
I never thought about that before. A shorter movie could be shown more times a day.
Yeah, that's always been the case. I mean, that's why you rarely see movies that are 3 hours long, unless it's a big budget director behind it, because in their mind, you can't make as much money off of that because it limits how many screenings of that movie are per day.
I would just think that no one in their right mind would want to sit through a 3-hour movie in a movie theater. That's an at-home thing, so you can pause it and go take a piss and make a sandwich.
It depends. I mean, I mean, Lord of the Rings, I think, pulled that off a bit. I think in the third one it got a little bit bloated, but...
Oh, God, I love those movies, but that third one, like, I got up, I stood up, and was ready to leave.
Yeah, same here. But, yeah, you know, Peter Jackson could pull that off. James Cameron, I think, could pull that off. He pulled it off with Titanic. You know, I think given the right director, you could pull off a 3-hour movie, but, I mean, it seems like they don't... the movie theaters go so far to not trust the R rating. And what's funny is I actually looked this up. I looked up on Box Office Mojo the total gross of R-rated movies versus total gross of PG movies. The PG-13 movies that came out today in last year did about $5 billion worth in box office sales. But the R-rated movies were about $2.5 billion. So, yeah, it's half of the PG-13 gross. But it's still not a money loser. You can still make a movie that's an R rating that makes money. You just got to be willing to put your full force behind it.
Well, you got to also think that most parents would be willing to take their younger school-age children to a PG-13 movie more than they would be willing to. At least most responsible parents would be willing to take their children more to a PG-13 movie than to an R-rated movie.
I wouldn't even take my kids to a PG-13 movie if it's a PG.
Well, your kids are like fucking 4 years old.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. I've seen worse.
Take your kids to a PG-13
I've seen a 15 movie, right, with babies in the fucking aisles. I'm not even kidding.
Those are just irresponsible and cunty parents. That can't be. There's no cure for being a cunt.
It depends on what kind of R we're talking about, because I was actually going to bring this up. I found an article after I looked up the box office gross. I found an article that talks about the highest grossing R-rated movies of all time. And honestly, I remember seeing a lot of these movies either in the theater as a kid or on DVD or something. You got stuff like the Matrix movies. A lot of people forget those are R-rated movies, and they all made huge amounts of bank, all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at Terminator 2 Judgment Day, R-rated movie. It's in the top 5 highest grossing R-rated movies.
Also, most of these were all released before it was almost, I think it's a law at this point now that all persons under 18 must be accompanied, under 17 must be accompanied by an adult.
No. These were still within the rating system. That was still the case.
No, but I mean, it used to be that you could still buy a ticket to those movies.
Miguel, I think we've got someone else who wants to join in the show. Do you want to add him?
Yeah, sure. Who is it?
I'll give you his details. His name's Rudy Ferretti. There we go.
Is he in the Skype chat?
No, he's actually on Skype at the moment. He wants to join in the conversation with us. Just add him on Skype, and then we can basically continue the convo with him. But sorry, Brandon, I got you off track. Keep going.
It's okay. I totally forgot what I was even talking about.
You're saying by the rating system.
Yeah, I mean, it was sometime I think in 1999 where movie theaters began making it a requirement for R-rated people that buying tickets to be R-rated movie to be at least 17 or older, where you had to show ID to get into a movie. I remember I couldn't go see Blair Witch Project because I was only 16 or only 15 at that time.
Well,
so I think that's why R-rated movies make a lot less now.
Well, I'm about to bring on somebody for the group chat. What was this gentleman's name, by the way, Burhan?
Rudy Ferretti. Add him on the Skype. He's on there. I've posted his details at the bottom of the Skype there for you.
Oh. I tried to add him onto here. He's got to accept my contact request.
Yeah.
So.
I'll get him to accept you now, and we can continue the conversation with him. But I agree with Brandon on this. the problem is they have so many target audiences when it comes to movies that in general we eventually are going to see, because we've seen it at the moment how movies have evolved now. Unless it's Oscar like bait season, we'll see movies like go into sequelities, and people want franchises that last long. Hence, look at J.K. Rowling. She's writing another Harry Potter book, and Warner Brothers are going to probably end up releasing that as a movie.
I think it goes to ridiculous levels, though, when it comes to cutting down movies, because that's something that irritates me. Is you're starting to see this trend in movies where they'll take an R-rated movie that was filmed as an R, and they'll chop it down to PG-13, and they'll do it in a way that it's obvious. Like, you can tell it's cut very unevenly to cut out the blood. Or in the case of blood, you have a lot of movies are using CGI blood now, and I used to wonder why that was the case. Like, CGI blood nowadays just looks so fake. It looks so ridiculous. I mean, go back and watch The Expendables, the first one, and the CGI blood that they used in that AR-15 scene with Terry Crews.
It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
It's so ridiculous, but I go back and I watch stuff like we talked about, like RoboCop, how bloody that movie is, and it looks real. It looks great, and it's very low budget. It's just blood squibs. And I was thinking, it can't be that more cheap for CGI blood to be used than regular blood. And I realized that one of the reasons that studios use it nowadays is if they want to release a movie that's an R as a PG-13 in the theaters, they can just digitally remove the CGI blood. They don't have to edit the scene itself. And the perfect example of that is the Wolverine. The DVD cut that's out, the unrated cut, puts all the blood back into it. Which makes sense.
And at some point in time, he's like, literally, there's more stabbing in the unrated cut.
He does it in the movie, and you're kind of like, wow, this is very bloodless. Like, there's just something about it. Like, your brain doesn't realize it because, Wolverine's been in other PG movies, but you're kind of like, he's stabbing people so much, and
in the heart, where there's a lot of the blood.
Yeah. And they put it all back in the unrated cut, but, you've got that. You've got The Internship with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, which was filmed as an R, and at the last minute they decided to release it as a PG-13, and it's so poorly edited in some places to the point to where there's actually a strip club scene. It's a very pivotal scene in the movie because there's a big set-piece joke for it, and it's so bad that they actually just blurred out the topless females in the scene. They didn't even edit it out or refilm it. They were just like, screw it, just throw some blur blobs on there.
Wow.
I mean,
I couldn't see a movie like that. If I saw that would get me to stop watching it. That, I agree with you, that is compromising the intended art.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And the whole issue as well is, if you look at the way that filmmaking used to be made before, it was easy, it was simple, and now people are just overcomplicating things and trying to get their cake and eating it. Instead of just making a movie that's got substance, they're just like, okay, we're going to just do 20,000 Hugh Jackman Wolverine movies, even though I like them. They are guilty pleasures. But we're going to do 3D's a new thing. Let's do 20,000 3D movies.
Not even 20,000 3D movies. It's more like, let's just take our few big budget movies we've got and let's just do them let's just post-convert them, which never looks good. I'm sorry. Post-conversion looks terrible. I mean, a perfect example is the Star Wars conversions. Those are just really bad.
Oh, yeah, we don't do freaking Star Wars.
Well, that actually goes back to what I was talking about, which, it used to be that CGI was considered the cheaper alternative back in the 90s. It was like, all right, we can't afford to go out and actually build a set for a movie, or we can't afford to build the animatronics for a movie. We'll have a guy go on a computer, and we'll have him just make whatever we got to do, and it's going to be a cheaper alternative in the short run.
Miguel, did you get the Addy?
Oh, yes. In fact, he's just got it right. I just got it right now, so let me just add your friend to the group call. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to also join us in on our chat, you can call the number on the main screen, 718-664-9265. Again, call number is 718-664-9265. The Untitled Movie Show, Episode 4. We've got about 30 minutes left in the live stream, So let's bring on our guest, Rudy Ferretti. You're a friend of Michael Burhan's, if I'm correct.
Hey, yeah. I saw his episode on YouTube, and I thought it was really cool what he wrote about that late guy, the guy that just died. So that's kind of how I found him and got in touch with him.
He was actually one of the guys who friend requested me on Facebook afterwards as well, because we had our own little sort of conversations and stuff like that. But it turns out he's a huge movie fan, so I thought I'd get him on the show and get him talking. So let's talk, Rudy, about your types of movies, like box office movies at the moment. Spielberg and Lucas are basically stating that the movie franchise in cinemas, as it goes, it's not sustainable anymore, and it's going to be changing. What do you think about that?
I think that if we don't start getting producers and filmmakers with some originality, creativity, I think that the industry is going to really start to get hurt. I think that there's too many remakes out there. People are just using the past for the present, and I think that it's time to for people to make new movies. I mean, none of this stuff was happening until recent. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you saw some remakes, but not as many as you're seeing today. Not even close. Or you see a movie that's really close to a movie you've seen without it being called a remake and being called a different name. So either way.
Yeah, we were talking about that with the lack of original titles anymore, and just studios not really putting their focus on it. Well, we were after that we're actually talking about now how it used to be that CGI was the cheaper alternative for movies. Like I said, if you couldn't build a set or find a location, or if you couldn't build the animatronics for a movie, you'd just throw it into a computer and you'd be able to cheapen out in the short run. But with movies now getting into like 9 digits in terms of its budgets, do you think that we're kind of going full circle, and CGI for the scale that they're going with nowadays is getting too expensive, and that we need to dial it back to the lesser days of sets and practicals?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think in terms of sets and designs and stuff, I think storytelling needs to be implemented. That's the problem, and it's one of the issues we have with the Michael Bay movies. It was kind of cut and paste for the Transformers franchise. If you could watch Transformers 1, 2, and 3 back to back, the movies have the same premise. The only thing that changed was Shia LaBeouf bitching.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I'm actually, like I said, I'm looking forward to the fourth one with Wahlberg. I
hope it sort of gives it a new boost in a sense.
I do too. I mean, like I said, I like the first movie. I know it's not a masterpiece. It's a guilty pleasure. I was insulted by 2, and 3 was only barely a step up. But, I mean, honestly, I'm willing to give him credit on that, because I don't think you could pull off what he wanted to do with the Transformers with practicals. I don't think you could have somebody in a giant robot suit, going around moving the way he did. That's a situation where I will give him credit. Same thing with, I was going to say same thing with Pacific Rim, but we have seen movies with giant monsters in suits. So I don't know if you could pull that off, but there are movies nowadays that I think could be done practically and be a lot cheaper and make more money because of it. And the perfect example I use is John Carpenter's The Thing versus the remake. The remake
was overdone.
Oh yeah, the remake was overly CGI. It goes back to what you were talking about with no character. I mean, there was no character in that movie. I couldn't tell you the name of any of those characters if you put a gun to my head.
Yeah, it's a shame really as well, because if you look at it, The Thing as a movie, when I was a kid, I shat myself. I was sitting there watching this movie scared shitless, and this was special effects. Nowadays it's kind of like, yeah, let's do the same thing, but let's use total CGI and just not give anybody any of that credibility and storytelling and characterization. And that's what made the first movie work, because you had all these characters in one room not trusting each other, all the way down to the end of the movie, right? No one trusted each other.
Brandon, oh, okay, I thought you were done.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say, Brandon, you got anything you want to add on this? Do you think CGI is kind of getting overly used and over the top?
Yes, but there are certain things when you're using CGI to create things you can't create in real world, then yes, it's absolutely justified. So then, you know, it's not using it too much. It's just using it, you know, the right CGI artists. What I do like is the people that blend both. That if you can make something real world, you can make like the Iron Man movies. The Iron Man movies would, whatever they could make real world, they made in real life, and the stuff that they obviously couldn't replicate, they did with CGI. So I think that's absolutely how all filmmakers should, you know, approach to CGI. If we can't make it in real world, we can make it in a computer.
Rudy, your thoughts?
I think that there's several things that I want to touch. Number one, when movies were done years ago, they didn't have the technology that they do now. So there really is it's an unfair comparison. Number two, I think movies looked better before the technology because with all these crazy special effects today and all this technology, it's no longer a movie. It's like computer. You know what I mean? Years ago when they did the movies, you know, they used the camera, they used some special effects, and that was it. And really hardly any special effects. You know, some ghosts, things like that, but you know, all that blood and gore and everything, that was all done with makeup, and you know, it took talent. It took a lot. Today, you Photoshop something and you can make it look like somebody cut their hand off. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it looks really fake. Like I mentioned The Thing mostly because even if they hadn't messed up the feel of The Thing, the special effects in that movie were just awful. The CGI just could not compare, especially when you're comparing it to a movie that really set the standard for real-world special effects. I mean, some of the stuff in that movie to this day I still can't believe was done with models and you know, rubber work.
Right. My fear is they're going to remake, God forbid, Jaws and Poltergeist eventually, and it's just going to be so overdone.
I hate to break it to you, but the Poltergeist remake is already in development.
They're remaking. They even talked about remaking Back to the Future as well.
Yeah, see, that's an insult. That's such an insult. You can't remake these movies. Don't get me wrong; they can do whatever they want, but it's an insult to the originals. You know, it's like when they redid Psycho in, I think it was 97 or 98. Okay, 98. Ridiculous. No offense, Vince Vaughn is no Anthony Perkins, nor is the other woman. She's no Janet Leigh. I forget the girl's name, but
Anne Heche.
Okay, yeah. Well, you're really good. You're a lot better than me then. But you know, I'm more old school. I really like old movies. I do watch new stuff, but I stopped after the 90s. You know what I mean? After the 90s was really my cutoff. I still watch some newer stuff, but I really like the older stuff. But make a long story short, they modernized Psycho, which was stupid. They made it in color, and they tried to make a new Norman Bates and a new Marion Crane, and it just doesn't work. It wasn't terrible, but it was kind of, you know, it's a copycat.
It was unnecessary to the point to where it was basically a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. It was completely unnecessary. That's one of the few remakes that I think is a great example of why some movies are just sacred cows. You know, even when you try to respect the source material, you realize there's no point in remaking it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Rob Zombie did a horrible job with that, in my opinion, as far as goes with Halloweens and stuff like that. They tried to redo Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's not the same. I'm glad that they changed it a little bit, but at the same time, it's not the same. You just can't do it. And the Poltergeist remake, you know, I don't even know if I would go watch it. I mean, I dreaded to watch Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, it really made me mad. You know.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. In fact, I think next week's show will probably be remakes. I was going to do a remakes episode anyway around this time because of the RoboCop.
Sorry, remake, I apologize. That's what I thought I could talk about.
No. It's just we're talking about. We're kind of talking about almost movie craft, really. It kind of still fits into our movies too expensive, but I kind of want to just kind of dovetail into kind of what this section of it. But I do agree, and if you want to come back next week, we're going to definitely get into remakes because I can go off on a whole episode, which is why I want to do a whole episode, mostly because of the upcoming RoboCop release.
Right. But it's funny you mentioned that. There's going to be a RoboCop remake already?
It's coming out next week.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's going to be released, I believe, February 10th. No, well, let me see what's next week. February 14th. It's going to be released on Valentine's Day. I might have to go watch that then, because if I'm not going to go, I'm either going to go watch it, or I'll probably end up hanging myself for Valentine's Day. So I think RoboCop might be RoboCop might be the better. I don't know if that'd be the better alternative.
I think they're releasing it on February 14th just to get all the recently broke up with men and
what, to be disappointed that it's a PG-13 RoboCop?
No, just sad, disappointed, lonely guys that are just going to be, want something to do.
Basically me.
I'm not
poor Burhan, poor Burhan. But
back to your topic, though. You were saying, about what the difference with the regulars and, the movies today in the industry. Also, I think Kickstarter's being extremely abused with all these ridiculously unnecessary, horrible documentaries. That's part of film. I figure it's not remakes. It's something that goes along with the film industry. It's hurting the film industry. All these documentaries, they're not real documentaries, and people are getting used and abused and lied to and misled, and Kickstarter is just being abused. And that's really now part of the film industry, because Kickstarter is being used in order to get these fundings for these films. You get what I'm saying?
I felt that way when it comes to big-budget directors going out to doing that. I mean, I can understand it in the case of something like the Veronica Mars movie. That was never going to be made into a big-budget movie by any studio. That had to be a Kickstarter.
Zach Braff.
Or Zach Braff. When you've got Spike Lee going out and wanting to do a movie on Kickstarter, keep in mind the guy's worth about $30 or $40 million. You kind of got to look at him like, why are you doing this? You can easily cut $1 million check right now to make your own movie. You don't need to have people crowdfund it.
Saying that, the same with Braff. Braff could actually cut a couple of million himself to make his own movie. He didn't need to go on there. And truthfully, he gave people all these incentives saying, oh, you could do this or you could do this. But it was kind of one of those things where he just went, let's see if everyone else can fund it. Now, I'm not against it, because I'm looking at putting a project potentially on Kickstarter for for a TV show pilot that I want to shoot, which I will go into more detail with you guys once the show's off air. But I will say that if you've got a couple of million in the bank, if I had $10 million and I needed to make myself a film, I would go into my own money. Vin Diesel did it right. The Riddick movie, he did it off his own back. He didn't ask anyone for funds. He did it himself. He put himself in the hole. He made that money back from the DVD sales and stuff like that as well. It wasn't a huge hit, but he did what he had to do.
It's people like Spike Lee that are hurting that.
Yeah.
People are abusing Kickstarter. You got to remember, how were things done before Kickstarter? They were done. So there's no excuse for it. And also, there's people that are doing Kickstarter, and I'll be honest with you, I was involved in a Kickstarter because I'm a Nevada local, and I was contacted by, Rob McCallum, and right now, if you look, I blogged him and exposed him all over the internet because he did the Kickstarter for that NES Club movie, and it's totally fraud because he picked me as a first character, and then what he did was he dropped my interview, dropped me from the credit, dropped me from the poster, dropped me from the upcoming events here in Nevada, without telling me, and I had to catch him on it. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? Now you added Patrick Scott Patterson. You added all these non-NES players to your movie, and you took me out. I said, what do you think that is? That's a slap in the face. I said, your Kickstarter barely funded before I jumped on it. Funded because I jumped on, and people, local knew I was going to be in the movie, so they put money towards it. So it's really unfair, and that's what happens, too, with these Kickstarters. You have projects that get started or done, and they're not exactly what they're offering. The NES Club is now totally different than what it was going to be. Patrick Scott Patterson launched a Kickstarter a while ago, did 3 little episodes on his pilot, and never got it, never did anything else. There's no excuse for that stuff. You're going to put a Kickstarter, you do what you're supposed to do. I created Endless Snow for the 2600. I didn't ask for no money. I went into my own pocket.
That's the thing as well. I think that if you have the money to do it, then that's what it should be. That's what should happen, In a sense, they're not doing that now. They're movie studios are looking at Kickstarter as a way for them to make money fast and build a budget without having outside investors and it's going to shoot them in the arse.
Yep.
Well, I completely agree. And Brandon, you got anything you want to add to this before we get back on topic?
I absolutely, I think that Kickstarter and the whole crowdfunding thing should not be used by millionaires and people who could very easily do this on their own.
Yeah.
But it's not an evil thing because of Kickstarter, we got things like Dirty Laundry, and we got the Veronica Mars movie, even though I don't really give a shit about Veronica Mars, but, it's something that got made. I give a shit about Kristen Bell.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, by the way, that Disney has the rights to the Punisher now, because I really would like to see that Dirty Laundry thing come to light.
And never in, such a short form has a character been, captured so perfectly.
For those of you that don't know, that was a short film, I believe, that was done. It was done starring Thomas Jane as the Punisher, and it was kind of almost like a concept, like, if you give us the rights to the Punisher or let us make the movie, we can do a much better version of it than you guys did. And
it was also used as a swan song in a sense as well.
Yeah.
It was like, this is me saying goodbye to the character. If I can get the money to make this movie, if I get the rights to the character, this is what I can do with it. That's why, in a sense, they never referenced the Punisher. You saw it, but they never referenced it. And because I think he wanted it to be known as a Punisher movie, but he didn't want anybody to try and sue him for using the Punisher name.
Yeah, I completely agree. But let's go back onto the main topic, because I wanted to talk about, I talked about how CGI is kind of being abused. I also think it's also taking away from the craft of movie making, that new directors nowadays don't know how to work within a budget. They're given so much money to work with, so you're starting to see less of a craft used with it. And the example I'm going to use is compare the Star Wars trilogies, the first three and then the second three. Look at the fight scenes and how the way they fought with the lightsabers. There was very little CGI. It was all practical, just sword fighting. Now look at the CGI explosion with the fight sequences in the new trilogy, and it's basically just them standing in the middle of a room and the wand basically just whipping around themselves. There's no craft to it. There's no choreography. There's no.
No, actually, you're wrong, because they had a lot better fight choreography in the prequels. I mean, you also look, the people that they're doing the lightsaber fighting in the prequels were done by Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, two men in their physical prime, fighting, and they had Ray Park to work with too. The first movies, I mean, we got Mark Hamill, also in his prime at that time, but he didn't really have anybody compared with. David Prowse was a giant lumbering guy in a suit who really couldn't see, and Alec Guinness was an elderly man. So, I don't know.
It was actually quite funny how he just stood there and let himself get, destroyed.
Yeah, but, I mean, you see what I'm saying? I think if the one thing we notice is the lightsaber itself looks more whole. The actual blade itself looks whole because, again, the technology has improved it.
Yeah.
Wow, February of next year. Oh my God, that's crazy. The Poltergeist movie.
Yeah, I mentioned that before because we were talking about Poltergeist last week on how we were talking about. I don't know if we talked about. No, I had actually thought about it with. I was thinking about doing an episode on studio interference, and Poltergeist was one of the movies I was going to talk about.
It's actually quite funny as well, though. If you look at it, I think, in a sense, studios are more going to effects than actors. So they can sit there and say, well, if the movie has a big enough effects budget, then I think we don't really need actors.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's become to that, but I mean, let's go back to The Thing. Original John Carpenter's The Thing. John Carpenter had a small budget, and he knew he didn't have much to work with in terms of his special effects, so he knew how to film his special effects to hide a lot of the issues with it. Like, people mock puppets and stuff like that, like, oh my God, that looks so fake. Well, yeah, if you've got a puppet in a brightly lit room where you can see all the nooks and crannies, yeah, it's going to look fake. But there's a certain craft to it. You got to know how to film it so that you don't tell that it's a that it's something fake. And that's what he did. He filmed it in the shadows. He knew how to light things. He knew how to set up a shot to where it looked real. You didn't notice all that. Look at something like Jaws. Jaws, I think, is the perfect example of what happens when you don't have special effects to lean on. A lot of people give credit to Spielberg for how Jaws had great mood, and you didn't see the shark until the end of the movie. Do you know why that was the case?
Yeah, because they almost lost the shark. The shark almost didn't work. I'm a huge, huge fan of Jaws. I'm also the world record holder on Jaws. Also the world record holder for reciting the Quint negotiation to kill the shark. So I'm actually very, very, very big on Jaws.
Wait, are you telling me that there are such things as world records for being able to recite entire dialogue portions of movies?
Oh, would you like me to?
No, because I along with a small trio of friends could probably recite all of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Well, that's pretty crazy. Yeah,
and each doing different characters.
Well, the thing is, I'm doing it as fast as possible. It's not just reciting and doing the different characters. What I'm doing is I'm doing the negotiations to kill the shark, fastest time. In other words, I'm saying it so fast, it's ridiculous.
He's speed reading it, basically.
Wow, that's
yeah, repeating it. The only person I think that could beat my record would be the Micro Machines guy.
I love the Micro Machines guy.
Yeah, I did the Jaws Quint negotiations to kill the shark in 27.71 seconds or some shit like that.
Wow.
And then I just had 52,000 viewers on Lounge Live 1337 2 weeks ago. I did Jaws. I turned over Jaws at 10 million something points. Only died 5 times.
Going back, that's actually really impressive, and that's really cool to talk. That's really.
Sorry, you brought up Jaws.
Oh no, I know, I know, but I mean, I was talking before about how the abundance of CGI has kind of taken away a craft of sorts, and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. Do you think that because of the studios basically throwing all this money at these movies that you're starting to lose a sort of directorial craft? You're not getting those guys that are more adept to making the most out of nothing. You're basically not getting a lot of those Roger Corman graduates, the guys that worked in that era with him that knew how to stretch a budget out, and all those great directors that came out because of it. I think Carpenter worked with Corman, Spielberg might have worked with him, Scorsese might have worked with him. A ton of people worked with him in the 70s, and they knew how to get the most out of it. And you really saw a lot of the rock star directors that we talked about last week coming out of that. You don't see that nowadays because everybody uses CGI, and they use it so much that there's nothing special about it. There's the cinematography aspect of it is lost.
It's just as bad as video games. I mean, these new producers and new actors, it's like the same thing with video games. They're overdoing the graphics and not worrying about the gameplay. So it's the same type of concept you're explaining. What's happening is they're making these movies, and they're putting more into the movie itself, but not caring about the plot of the movie. It's more about the material, the graphics of it, the backgrounds, the fake, add-ons to the movie, like, adding a plane that explodes. It's not really there, things like that. But they're not worrying about how good the movie is. They just want the excitement of, the thrill of what it looks like. And then they're also not putting money into the actors, because if you've noticed, more and more of these movies, they're getting less and less nobodies in them. More and more nobodies in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it seems like the days of movies being built on stars is pretty much gone. I mean, we talked about that in our first episode with the box office bombs, how in the first quarter of 2013 you had all those big action movies that came out, like Bullet to the Head, Parker, The Last Stand, that were fronted by guys like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Jason Statham was usually good with that, and they all flopped hard. It's come to the point where you really don't have that many actors nowadays that can really carry a movie anymore. I think maybe a Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, or even without, because I think the Sherlock Holmes movies, I love those, and they did good.
They did okay. They didn't do amazingly well like Iron Man did.
No, but they still sold pretty decently. Same thing with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is become, I don't know if he's become outside of Tim Burton movies, but he's also a guy that in his own right could sell a movie just on his name, but you're starting to see less of that with movies nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. It's gotten to the point now where there's not really an actor that can, like, make money in the box office, and the same goes for a director. And the problem is you have too many people putting out a lot of money saying, well, if we throw this amount of money to this movie, it's going to work. Then when there was a huge thing going on with indie movies, they had that trend with that. Studios like branching out to indie movies, saying, oh, we can like recoup our money by doing this, this, and this. And it just got to the point where it was just getting stupid. You know, you having studios throw money at people because they think, oh, this person's going to be my next biggest box office, going to make money for me.
Darling.
Yeah, box office darling. It's kind of, everyone's trying to fight for that position, but it's not going to get them anywhere. And they need to either think about where they can go from there. And in my opinion, I think they need to go back to basics. Think about story, character, and plot. That's it. And I really think when they're looking at movies like the DC Man of Steel movie, if the sequel is going to bomb unless they consider the characters and what exactly they're going to do with them.
Once again, folks, we're getting into the 5-minute mark on our live show, actually the 3-minute mark. If you want to just call us in or join the chat real quick just to kind of give your last 2 cents on it, we're still going to keep going. I've still got a lot to talk about, so we are going to go into the overtime for a couple more minutes after that. So 718-664-9265, the Untitled Movie Show, Episode 4, Are Movies Too Expensive? Brandon, you know, I forgot what we were talking about before that. Do you give me a second.
What part of New York are you guys in?
What?
Queens? What part of New York are you in?
Me? I'm actually in Port Richey, Florida.
So 718
is Queens or the Bronx. That's why I was asking.
Oh, that's just the Blog Talk Radio number. I guess maybe the server is based there.
Our official hosts of our network
Interesting.
are from. So they are from New York. Brandon himself down here is actually a veteran New Yorkian.
Oh, okay. No, because I'm from New York, so that's what I was.
But yeah, I mean, Brandon, we were talking about, you know, movies not being sold on characters or stars anymore. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, we talked about how, you know, we had the action movies of the early years of the last year that flopped. I mean, is Burhan right? Do you think it's getting too much on spectacle and less on character?
Yeah, I mean, because it's movies just become ridiculous at times with like some of the things that get made. You wonder how did this make it out of a writer's room?
Yeah.
Or how did this even get picked up to be bought? This just seems like such an obscure concept for a movie, and I don't know. It really does. There is a very lack of inspiration in original titles nowadays, and I'm sure it's not for lack of trying. I'm just think it's studios are not willing to commit these large amounts of money that would be required to make a movie to something that they aren't absolutely sure that they're going to get at least 50% sure that they'll see a return on their investment on.
Rudy, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. You know, it all goes back to everything I was saying. I feel kind of the same way about all you guys do about the whole film industry of, you know, taking its toll and the difference of the directors now and how they're putting just the money into the, you know, the movie itself and not focusing on talent and the actors. So I'm kind of on the same page. I really don't have anything to add to that, unfortunately.
Well, it seems like nowadays the only place you look for low-budget original movies seems to be only in the horror and comedy fields. I mean, look at something like The Hangover, which made tons of money, and I believe The Hangover is, it's in the top 15 highest-grossing R-rated movies of all time list. I think it made like 467. Thank you, Blog Talk. It made $467 million at the box office. It beat out The Matrix in terms of all-time theater gross. Look at something like The Purge, which was $3 million. And
the thing is, though, if you look at it, when it comes to The Hangover, though, did you find this? I don't know if you guys have found this. The movie kind of degraded in quality as it shifted to the second and third movies.
Yes, I agree. I think they got that's because a lot of the original writers had left. They weren't writing the scripts after that.
Again, it was kind of copy and paste, though, wasn't it? It was like, yeah.
It was copy and paste, but it was also, they fell into the trap that a lot of sequels do. All they did was just take elements that people like and up them even more. And when you give people too much, they start to...
On the court. Now Chris is stepping off the court to talk.
Rudy? Oh, thank you.
No, it was an accident. I hit a key. I apologize.
No worries. Go for it.
Okay. But yeah, I think The Hangover kind of fell into that trap that a lot of sequels do, is that they feel like they have to up the ante, so you got more and more of the same, just more of it, especially in the third one. But
that got worse and worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree, but you can't deny that for what it cost, which I don't think that movie cost a lot, it couldn't have, it made a ton of money. And it seems to be the case with comedies, with horror films. I mean, look at The Purge. The Purge was a $3 million movie, and I think it went on to almost make like $50 million, I believe. I believe it made a lot more than that, and people were talking about that. I mean, look at what's considered to be the highest grossing film by volume ever, and that's Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity cost $11,000 to make and went on to make $150 million.
Right, but here's my argument about that whole price thing. There weren't as many movie theaters back in the old days when Jaws was made and stuff like that, so it's an unfair comparison when they talk about, how many, people went to see this movie or that movie. In my opinion, Jaws is still the all-time, record holder. Reason being because there was such little amount of movie theaters, there was less population, and it was less expensive, if that makes sense.
I agree. I get what you're saying in terms of popularity. I think you're saying it won over that because it took a lot more to reach that big budget than it does today.
It did. There was less population of people. There was less people seeing horror movies back then too. Let's face it. Back then in the olden days, everything was all about censorship. You couldn't. There was no such thing as a bra commercial in 1975. I don't think.
Well, that was pre-MPAA. That was back when all you had was the Hays Code, right?
I think so. I mean, I was born in 79, but from what I know...
Yeah, because I think it was around the time, I think Dirty Harry was one of the first ones to get an MPAA rating. So it was somewhere between Dirty Harry and Texas Chainsaw. So it would probably be like 74, 75. Right.
So for sure, it's an unfair comparison when they talk about these movies, highest grossing of all time, And I know we'll get into this in another conversation with the video games and stuff, but it's the same concept. I hear the same bull crap all the time. They compare these new all-time sales, and you guys have common sense, and you can tell that there weren't as many people, there weren't as many movie theaters, and there weren't as many people yet going to see horror movies only because of the bashing. There were movies taken out of the movie theater because of blood and gore back in the old days. Silent Night, Deadly Night was one of them. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, by the way, just as a heads up, folks, we are officially into the archive section of our main show. We're no longer live, so if you're here listening to the sound of my voice, it's because you have downloaded this show or listening to it after the fact. So, welcome. That does bring up an interesting point that with movie studio, with consumers having more access to movies, you would think that would actually be a boost to ticket sales. That, because there are more theaters out there, more people can have access to it, and that should, by comparison, give access to more revenue. And yet the studios seemingly clamp down so much on their movies. You'd think that it'd be the opposite. That, hey, we've got all these theaters out there. We can take a lot more risks with our movies. Who cares if it doesn't get play in this theater or that theater or something like that? It's one of the things where, and I remember on another podcast I was listening to somebody talk about how they hate the fact that there's such a stigma on unrated or NC-17 movies that most theaters won't carry them. Most studios won't promote them because you can't promote them during regular daytime hours or in most newspapers. I actually thought I would love to see a director out there like a David Fincher or something. I think Fincher's the only one that could pull this off, that could make a movie and just have it come out with no rating, just unrated, not even going to take it to the MPAA, just be like, look, we're going to throw it out here. I'm not cutting it down. I'm not editing it or anything like that. We're just going to have it be as is. Because I was actually looking this up on the ratings things, because I do want to do an episode on movie ratings somewhere down the line. Of all the movies that you'd be surprised how many movies had to be edited down to get to their rating, and how much different they probably would have been after the fact.
That is interesting. You know what? Also, too, what people don't realize too, back in the olden days, it was hard to. Everything was more of a surprise to us. That's a fact. We didn't have the stupid internet and social media and everything else. So, and not everybody had TV, and not everybody watched TV because we were out doing other things, staying active. So not everybody knew that this movie was coming out or that movie was coming out. So that also lessens the people going to the movie theaters too as well. So like I said, it goes back to being an unfair comparison about movie sales of today versus yesterday. It's just, you can't,
Burhan, your thoughts on that? Do you think that with the as wide a release as movies gets nowadays, that they should be willing to take more risks in that regard?
They should be, because you need original material. You need new stories. By telling the same story over and over again, what are you doing? You're not really doing anything, are you? Right. I know there's that whole thing where everyone's like, well, every movie is the same story being told 1,000 times, yet there's only really 7 real stories out there. Fuck that shit. At the end of the day, if you can't come up with something new, stop watering down the stuff that we love. Like, I'm not looking forward to the RoboCop movie. I agree. I'm not looking forward to it.
Which one are you not looking forward to?
The reboot.
The RoboCop remake that's coming out in a few years.
I'm not, because I don't have any faith that they're going to do what they want to do with the character. It's basically they want to put together a franchise, sell the character, sell a toy line, and go out with it. And people don't understand, when you're looking at studios, they have their fingers in a lot of pies when it comes to these franchises. They have toys. They have comic books. They have licensing, like things in terms of properties. So they want to license toys and stuff.
Right. It's easier to advertise. So they should be putting so much more into the film, and they're not. That's the thing that sucks. They're making all this. They're making all this money, but let me tell you something. Off the record, really, who's making the money is the fucking snack bars at the movie theater. They make more money than anybody. Seriously.
The one thing that I will say that movie theaters are trying to do different over here, I don't know if they're doing it over there, they do a thing called a Cineworld card, where you pay $15 and you can see any movie you want, any time of day.
Oh, that would never fly here in the U.S. There's no way the major studios would be willing to do something like that. A pay-as-you-go, a kind of bulk pay-as-you-go model.
They should.
It's a monthly model. You pay $15 a month if you go or if you don't go.
Right, $15 exactly. Go as many times as you want. A lot of people would pay that and actually not go, because not everybody's gonna, go all the time.
Well, it's same as a gym membership, basically. And what you do is you go there. You have to buy the snacks from the cinema. So the snacks are still expensive, but you're basically paying to this monthly fee, so you can actually, go and get what you want in terms of watching films. When I had it, I was paying $13 a month when I was like in uni, and I went to see movies every day, every single day.
Yeah, I don't think I doubt the major studios would ever be into that. They would definitely pull the plug on that quick. But that is something to look into. I would love to see that pop up here.
As I said, it's redeemable because they still, with the amount of memberships they're selling, they can still purchase the movie rights that they need to, so they can fund those movies and get it done and get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd love to see it happen, but this is the same industry that still freaks out over cam videos. Which it brings it up because I was reading an article about how some guy went in to watch a movie, but he had those Google glasses.
Yeah.
But they're actually glasses,
And he got arrested, right?
He didn't get arrested, but what happened is the theater actually contacted the MPAA, and the MPAA actually had ICE, the International Customs Exchange, the people that basically handle immigration. They had them come down and interrogate the guy for several hours, trying to see if he was like pirating the movie or anything like that. And
oh, come on.
It's ridiculous, and it's so douchey when you read their response. How they said like, oh, it wasn't an interrogation, it was a voluntary interview. Keep in mind that even the guy basically said, it's a voluntary interview, but if you don't volunteer on it, bad things might happen. That's what the guy actually said.
Yeah.
See, that's bullshit.
I mean, this is just an archaic.
Well, that's why I'm starting to hate my own country. It's kind of like I want to get out of the U.S. because I really think that, there's the socialism. They're really getting out of control. And I was a huge Obama supporter, but now I'm really afraid for the U.S. If we don't have a revolution, we're going to fucking end up with another Holocaust, and I don't want that.
I wouldn't go that far, but I think it does mean. I think all it tells me is that the MPAA needs to evolve. That's what it tells me.
We're headed that way. Trust me. I've done my homework. We're in a lot of trouble. They want to kill us. They want to get rid of us. They do. I'm not afraid to say it. As much as I sound like a weirdo, I don't care because I do my homework. We're in trouble. Go look up the Illuminati card deck from 1995. Every fucking event in that card deck has been happening in that card deck, and it's way past 95.
Well, that's a different topic for a different episode.
Oh yeah.
A different show.
Yeah, completely different show. Maybe we can have him on IGG. But yeah, we'll put him on I Got Gameplay. But
think of it as an introduction.
yeah. But it's unfortunate because I do think that the theater experience could be brought back. I do think there is something to theaters. I think the MPAA is just freaking out too much. I think they put way too much stock in piracy. I think you can. I like going to the theater. I don't mind it once in a while. It's a great communal experience. Bringing people to see a big budget movie on the big screen, for me, works. You don't need to have the 3D for most movies. You don't need to have the big IMAX screen. I think if they just made the experience more enjoyable and weren't so pain in the butt about it, I think you'd have more people coming in to view movies.
It's gimmicks, isn't it? It's to get them butts on seats because I normally, for someone like me, I'll just wait. I'll wait till the movie comes out on Netflix. I don't have to go to the cinema.
Well, you're going to be waiting a long time for Netflix because it takes most big budget movies at least. It takes about almost a year before they pop up on Netflix.
But you know what I mean? Or I could wait until Sky has them. Our equivalent of cable TV here has them. So I don't really have to go out and buy these little perks. And then because they're the way that the country's gone in terms of recession, we are now at a situation where people aren't very willing to spend their money. And if they've got to part with their money to go and see a movie, they want a movie that's worth paying for. If you feel gypped that you're not getting your money out of it, then what's the point?
Yep.
Brandon, you've been kind of quiet. Your thoughts on this? Do you think that the movie theater industry, in terms of the theater model, can be saved? Do you think we're heading to a downward?
I certainly think your local theater establishment that's done and dusted, that's a thing of the past. That is very rare that you see those in towns these days. But certainly the big three, United Artists, Regal, and
Beacon.
Yeah. They'll still be around because people are still going to come to movies. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see. I'll see a lot more of these non-cinematic events, like special screenings. I think they'll find ways to get people in the seats.
Oh, first off, I think I'm hearing an echo on your end, by the way.
Sorry.
But that actually goes back to AMC. They've been doing a lot of those recently. They've been re-releasing a lot of movies from the 80s out there. I know Brad Jones, the cinema snob, he's done a few of them where they re-release stuff like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
And you know what? I think
Pulp Fiction was 1994.
Same thing,
80s
and 90s.
20 years ago, man.
Yeah, I think that's what they did for the 20th anniversary. AMC re-released the Pulp Fiction.
I mean, I think a lot of the traditional theater thing that's always going to stay around. But what I'd like to see more of, and I would love to go because we now have one locally, or at least kind of locally. I'd like to see more like Alamo Draft House type place, a place where you go get food and go see a movie. Because how many people go on dates and go for dinner and a movie? Well, you go to a place like an Alamo Draft House, you could get dinner and a movie and not have to go to two different places.
That reminds me actually of a story that somebody I heard online told me about where they went to go see a movie at the Alamo Draft House. I think it was like Commando or something. And they actually had a bit. They actually did it so that it was like interactive almost, where they like would give the people in the theater actually like cap guns, and anytime you see an explosion pop up, it would shoot off like a flash pot in front of the right around the stage where the theater was.
They better not do a new Commando remake. I'll tell you right now.
No, they should not do another Commando remake.
Why are we not talking about terrible Arnold voices?
Well, they are working on the third Conan movie, which actually is going to star Schwarzenegger.
I know. And Shia LaBeouf, apparently.
Yeah, he needs to go back to Hollywood and get the fuck out of politics because he doesn't belong there. That's for sure.
Well, he has.
I like The Last Stand. I thought that movie was really fun.
No, I heard that the next Conan movie, he wants it to be like Conan towards the end of his life. Like he doesn't want Arnold altered in any way. He wants an older Conan.
I could see that. I'm all for that.
We will see.
Yeah, you guys are doing his newer voice. I was doing his older voice. Back in Commando, he was a little bit more subtle with his voice. Now it's more like that, He wasn't like that in Commando. If you go back and watch it,
Yeah, I loved Commando so much. It was so hilarious watching that movie.
Oh, it's a great good bad film.
Yeah, very much.
I love Commando. I could watch that anytime.
I think my favorite part was when he's holding the guy upside down over the river, and he's like, "Remember when I told you I'd kill you last? Yeah, man, you did. I lied," and then drops him.
Yeah,
he's like, what is important is gravity. I got to tell you, Sully, this is my weak arm. You can't kill me, Matrix. You need me to find your daughter. Where is she? I don't know, but Cook knows. I think you're supposed to meet her, but you won't. Why not? Because I already know. No. I'm sorry when I promised to kill you last.
I lied.
I lied. That was crazy, though.
That movie, that's a fun movie to watch. That's really fun, but hopefully we don't see a remake of that because I think that movie needs to stay in its time shell.
Yeah, they'll probably have the fucking Rock do it and ruin it.
Hey, I like The Rock, but
but he can't be Commando.
No, and if they remade it today, they wouldn't make it a hard R. That would be a PG-13. It would be bloodless. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about of how the studios kind of neuter newer movies and even remakes of older movies to kind of get more people to watch it, which I think is
it's not fucking ridiculous. Vin Diesel. I'm happy.
Yeah, but we're gonna start wrapping things up. I still think that the theater experience could still work. I think, unfortunately, though, you're going to see a lot more franchise pictures getting the big releases and your smaller movies kind of being pushed to the side, and that's really unfortunate. So I'm going to throw it out to you people out there in the audience. Go out and support lesser-known movies. Skip the Iron Mans and the Thors and all these Marvel movies. Wait for those to come out on DVD. Give a movie like An Olympus Has Fallen or An Oblivion, which I thought was an amazing movie and I wish I'd have seen in theaters, or even Dredd. Go out there and support the Dredd 2 sequel that they're trying to get off the ground. Let's get more movies out there that are lower budgeted, that are better written, that have a craft to them that you don't see movies nowadays, because I do think we could have another revolution, like you guys said, with the 90s, with the indie movement, where you started to see a lot more low-budget indie films getting big-time releases. Mm-hmm. I think we could still do that, and I think Hollywood would be better off for it. So, Michael Burhan, where can we find you?
Nerdgenius.com, www.nerdgenius.com, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheNerdGenius, dailymotion.com, NerdGenius, and also you can find me in loads of different places, including retroanthem.com, fanboysanonymous.com, and loads of other little places like Facebook and stuff like that as well. And I just want to do a short little shout out to everybody. If anybody out there is suffering depression, because we've lost one of our own in the gaming community at the moment due to this, I want you guys to find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, find me on Gmail. Come and talk to me because I don't want to see anybody else go through this. And I'm open. My door is open, and I'm here to talk. And I'm here to try and let you guys know that there's people out there that I'm not unapproachable. Just come talk to me.
Yeah, and check out his most recent tribute video for the late Justin Carmichael. He put a lot of heart into it. You really do get to see a true side of Burhan. Go onto his YouTube channel and check that out. It's definitely worth watching. Brandon, you got anything you want to plug before we head on out?
You can listen to me every one.
Brandon, say that again. You kind of died out.
blogtalkradio.com/DreamElite. Sorry, my fucking internet is not the best at this place. Sorry, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, Dream Elite Radio, blogtalkradio.com/DreamElite. Sportaholics Anonymous. I talk sports for like 2 hours or so, or whatever the hell I want to do. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Brandon All Hope. You could throw things at me at my house if you see me. No, I fucking don't care. Thanks for having me. It was good to be on the show.
Yeah, same here.
We really do appreciate you guys being on here. Rudy, is there anything you want to plug? A Twitter, a blog, anything you do that you want to get fans out there?
Yeah, if you guys type Rudy Ferretti under any search, you're gonna find me. But I've got a Twitter page. Follow me on there. If you follow me, I'll follow you. Same thing goes with Facebook. Same thing goes with YouTube. I'm not like some of the other guys. There's a lot of people on these other sites, and you go follow them, and then they don't follow you. So if you follow me, I follow you. So it's all good,
Well, you can always follow me here on blogtalkradio.com/RU Network, Retro Unlimited, the Untitled Movie Show. Next week's show is going to be on remakes. We're going to do that to coincide with the release of the recent RoboCop remake. So tune into that. Rudy, we'd love to have you on next week. I've got you on my Skype, so if you're ever on and you want to talk about come back on next week for the remakes talk, we'd definitely love to have you back on.
Yeah, I think that would be more ideal for me too, because at least when I start talking about remakes, at least we're talking about remakes now.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm definitely going to have a lot of notes and things to talk about when it comes to there. So,
and guys, just one more thing. You can also find me and Brandon with an episode written by Miguel, This Job for Hire, episode 3. It's going to debut tomorrow night, so make sure you check that out.
I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to see my words pop up on the screen.
What's tomorrow night?
Burhan does a show, a web series called This Job for Hire, and
okay,
it's basically the story of one man who is trying to get back into the movie industry after being out of it for several years, and it's definitely shenanigans aplenty. And I recently wrote an episode, and he just recently filmed it, and it's going to be going up tomorrow night, I guess.
Okay, cool.
So definitely check that out. This Job for Hire, folks, not the Chris Jericho version. Let's not bring that one up.
Well, I think that's stopped production now, hasn't it? I Am Jericho.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess we beat him out. Awesome.
Yeah.
Michael Burhan invented the web series.
Yeah.
I did.
We beat you, Chris Jericho. All right. Before I get myself into any more trouble, for Michael Burhan of the Nerd Genius, for Brandon Liggan of Sportaholics Radio, and for our special guest, Mr. Rudy Ferretti, I'm Miguel Leon. This has been the Untitled Movie Show here on blogtalkradio.com on Retro Unlimited. Jay, take us out.
Celebrity voices are impersonated. No celebrities were harmed in filming of this episode.
Excuse me, sir. The show's over.
Get away, zit face.